Many people gathered in a huge hall with a snow-white interior. The noise is unbearable, but the main person at the table endures every scream. They are not going to calm down. The priest turned to the saint. Everyone is pretty tired of the unrest, which is getting worse. Since patience has run out, the men literally beg the saint to make a decision. A blonde with sea-blue eyes carefully watches those asking. There is only one desire, for real peace to reign in the empire, which could not be changed. At this moment, everything seemed to freeze, not allowing history to move forward, holding it in place. Members of each faction begged for help, and their leaders glared at the saint due to their indecision. The crown prince and swordmaster of the Alita Empire, whose name is Kyle Alexis Alita, silently looks at the beauty for a while. She must choose either him or his opponent. On the other hand, there is a high priest who seems to have stepped out of a painting with golden eyes and hair that also resembles the bright sun on a dark day. His name is Reyhouse de. The man's face remains calm, but not for long. The lips stretch into a smile that does not bode well. The young man has already prepared a prison cell for the girl. Next in line is the blue-eyed head of the merchant guild named Cass Lloyd. His dark hair is probably the same as his soul, and his gaze expresses even more contempt. The girl cannot decipher the message that is hidden in the guy's soul. It's too complicated to figure out, so she gives up. Too many problems with just one person. In addition to this, there is one more fact that greatly interferes with concentration. Messages from the gods constantly appear before your eyes in the form of glowing blue screens. Odysseus, the god of love, dances uncontrollably. Monty, the god of art, composes poems about the beauty of the high priest. Hesed, the god of knowledge, reads the list of property of the merchant guild, and the heroine herself thinks about how it all came to this point. My ears begin to ring. Sometimes you want to hide and run far away so as not to hear that nasty sound that notifies you of a new message. It seems the saint can't stand it anymore. The determination to change everything that happens sparkles in the eyes. The blonde can no longer put things off, so she sighs, saying that it's time to decide something. Grabbing her head with her hand, the lady sighs slightly. The maid immediately asks if everything is okay. Her name is Annie, and she is a minor character who didn't even have a name in the novel. The woman expresses her sincere concern about the situation that is happening. For the last 2 days, the saint had been asking her name, and she seemed completely unaware of what was happening around her. A smile is expressed on the face, as if saying for itself that everything is fine. You need to behave as naturally as possible so that no one suspects anything. Everything will be fine, that's it. Annie still doesn't calm down. She asks if the lady is hungry, because then dinner can be served immediately in bed, so that the woman does not become even more overtired. In such a state, you definitely shouldn't go to the banquet on the occasion of His Highness's birthday. It's a shame, because Reyhouse even sent a beautiful dress with stones. The maid would like to know how much it costs. The first thought that comes to mind is related to the reaction that the world would receive from Ariel. She would have been in a panic that she would not be able to congratulate the prince properly because she was in love. Lightly waving her hand, the lady asks to bring her something to eat. She is not going to say anything about the holiday, which she will not miss, because everything is in order. The girl needs to be brought everything that was prepared for that day, of course, except for the salad. Ariel never ate it because of several ingredients that she didn't really like. A second later, the maid disappears. The door closes behind her with a slam, while she can be heard promising that everything will be done very soon. The blonde is left all alone in the spacious room. I can't believe what is happening is true. Sapphire eyes and a young face only mean that the maiden has indeed become Ari. She looks in the mirror, finding more similarities. The Return of Saint Camilla is a novel. In a past life, the heroine read about the life of the righteous Camilla. All her exploits were described there in detail, how beautiful she was. The lady was supported by 3 handsome men from different walks of life. They are so different, but at the same time, so the same. The guys not only supported the saint, but literally worshipped her face. Ultimately, they all became the girl's husbands. The end of the novel indicated how the 4 of them lived happily, which of course was not expected by the young reader who was interested. Just 2 days, and my whole life turned upside down. The lady ended up in this work, and eventually became Ariel, who remained the second main character for the time being. The girl's mother was a famous baroness, and the baby herself was an illegitimate child, so she was treated as if she did not exist. It's the hurtful part of childhood that's important. The heroine did not believe in the gods, although she regularly went to the temple. She just didn't know how they could help her, but she prayed to marry someone with a good background. Not much time had passed since the last visit to the temple, but the priest noticed the lady. Reyhouse talked to the lady and brought her to Elysium, in which he himself was one of the most important. 2 years later, the girl began to diligently play the role of saint. She's just a fake who isn't really anything, but she thought it was a good way to assert herself. In order to maintain political stability, Crown Prince Kyle and the High Priest came up with the role of the sick Ariel, who went into hiding. At the very beginning, it became known that eventually a real saint would appear. The girl knew very well that when the true heroine appeared, they would get rid of her, but she blindly hoped that Reyhouse would speak out in her defense. The blonde also secretly adored the prince, who did not understand her feelings from the very beginning. She was a villain who was very jealous of Camille and her high-ranking status. In the end, the true saint still forgave her friend, but she still tried to kill her. As soon as the lady raised the dagger, she was pierced by 3 swords that were already ready, and she died without even having time to scream. When the woman read about all this in history, she was incredibly happy that the villainess still got what she deserved. Now the situation has changed, because no one wants to die. The girl still remembers how she died in her previous life. She is trapped there because the body in the other world is dead. This means that the lady remains Ariel for the rest of her life. As a child born out of wedlock from a noble family, the maiden struggled to save up for her own house and began to live independently. Just a year after all the events, she died. The blonde moves closer to the window to clear her head a little. A light wind suddenly breaks out and rushes in, forcing the lady to move back a little due to the strong current. The air is really fresh and pleasant. It is worth rejoicing even in such small things, because only the living, who remained and survived until the very end, can enjoy such things. Only when the lady felt death's fingers squeezing her heart did Ariel realize how much she did not want to die. Anything is better than the fate that ultimately awaits this character. Stretching, the beauty smiles lightly. Everywhere you need to look for your advantages, and compared to your previous life, everything is much better than it could have been. If the heroine does not follow the plot, she can change the future. Everything will definitely be fine if you try to change at least something. After all, the lady was reborn to the point of no return, so there is no time or need to grieve for her past life. The blonde is 100% not interested in those who love another. She doesn't want to be a saint, and there is still a lot of time ahead, so it would be much better to focus on exploring the new world. When Camilla appears, the heroine will simply give up her place and leave the temple, buying a house to live somewhere nearby. There is no point in denying a reality that has already arrived, despite the protests. The beauty is about to leave, but everything around her becomes dark, and then a screen appears right in front of her face, which reads, "A child who accepts his fate will have a wonderful journey." Things just get more confusing. Those who have existed since the beginning of time and who are already quite bored with everyday life became interested in the main character. She cannot immediately understand who exactly the message is about. The blonde blinks her eyes in surprise. She managed to reread the inscription countless times, but still did not understand anything. The speech is too complicated to become known. Suddenly, the screen disappeared from view again. Virgo looks around, hoping to understand what is going on around her. She wants everything to be as before, even if it is obvious that this will not happen. Maybe the lady is just sleeping, but that's impossible. You have to throw away unnecessary thoughts because someone is knocking on the door. The beauty looks forward with interest, noticing the already familiar face and golden hair. Reyhouse looks with his golden eyes, as if drilling a hole somewhere in the girl's forehead. She tries not to hesitate, but everything that happens seems to fascinate her. The blonde smiles. He tries to pretend that everything is as usual, but he says one simple thing that ruins everything. For the first time, Virgo called him by his name, which is usually forbidden. Only now did the blonde finally realize what a mistake she had made. Only Camilla addressed everyone by name, and Ariel herself always addressed them by their title, so as not to spoil the impression. Smiling, the beauty asks for forgiveness. There's no point in running into even more trouble, so she's trying to make amends. The voice immediately interrupts. The blonde liked the way they called him by name. It seems that he even managed to forget his name for a while, because everyone calls him completely differently, as it should be. Carefully examining the girl from head to toe, the man falls silent for a second. From that very moment, the beauty has the right to address him this way and no other way. It's like some kind of trick. A real heroine would probably beam with happiness. The reaction should be quite predictable, but in this case, you should not go too far over the line. You can't address the high priest so disrespectfully. It is impossible to deny the similarities and the same body, but this woman is still not Ari, who is very different in type. The smile looks forced, but even that is enough. The beauty promises that this will never happen again, and tries to evade the topic, which she herself chose by chance. Reyhouse once again interrupts the girl, but this time almost letting her finish. As said before, the temple is now the new home of the saint, so there is no point in hiding. The man seems very nice and courteous, but in reality this is not entirely true, which will ultimately backfire on everyone. The hero promises to give anything, but with freedom comes responsibility. This is what happened in Camilla's story. When she became a saint, she still addressed others only by their first names, even if the high priest was almost as powerful as the members of the imperial family. It was this man who brought Ari to the sanctuary and forced him to play this strange role. In the end, all that remains now is to be doomed, because everything is only going to get worse. The man says that he is very sorry that they will not call him by name. He smiles, but you can immediately see that he is trying to put pressure, as if to push until the moment when they agree with him. Bowing her head, the lady thanks for dinner. She has no right to say anything else, because everyone in the room knows that the lady is definitely not a saint and never will be. Before leaving the room, the blonde remembers the fact that they have not seen each other for only a few days. The lady doesn't seem to be herself, although a person cannot change much in such a short period of time. Ariel tries not to think about mediocre things. She went to the library to study, and everything seemed to go well. The girl is stretching. The only positive thing is that the last conversation with Reyhouse didn't go as bad as it initially seemed. He's not the best conversationalist, but he's definitely not the worst either. Over the past couple of days, the lady managed to learn a lot. The year is 722, that is, 82 years since the founding of the empire. There are still about 5 years left before Camilla appears. The heroine found herself in the Illid Empire, where both monarchs and clergy are equally revered. 99% of the population are believers, and shrines to the main gods are located everywhere. There are 9 gods in total, who are listed in the books from which everything became known. The Temple of Ilium, where the heroine is located, is a place of veneration for this 9, so there is no other option. Ilium is the most special of the temples. A saint was born there, and only there can one worship all the gods at the same time. This place is literally the religious center of the empire. When one of the 9 decides to share his wisdom, the saint will see a prophecy in the sky. A prophecy is when a glowing block with words engraved appears before your eyes. After a while, the screen disappears, but the words are forever imprinted in the memory. The blonde doesn't quite understand how something like this works. It's still not given to her, because a real saint will only be in 5 years. We just have to wait for something to happen. There was a moment in the book when Camille used divine power that was quite great. This is not mentioned anywhere, as if someone is trying to hide something. In any case, this has nothing to do with Ari herself. It's better to read something more useful and not as successful as what fell into the girl's hands. There are a lot of books in the Imperial Library that could be of great help. It's worth reading as much as possible since you're on vacation and almost no one goes to the library. The girl begins planning, which she has already put off for several days. In this world, there are monthly expenses that are equal to the salaries that are allocated. If you add everything together and convert it into one, the beauty gets about 220 million, which is not that bad money with all due respect. At the same time, the heroine is completely supported by the temple, so it turns out that if Camilla replaces the beauty, she will be able to live joylessly until the end of her days. The heroine knows that the first thing she can do is sell all the trinkets that she can wear. Ariel from the book spent all the money as soon as she got it, but this is a completely different person. In her thoughts, the girl is already rejoicing at the successfully completed mission. As soon as the beauty gets out, everything will be fine, and she will be able to build a wonderful house in which she will live. A strange sound begins to be heard around again, which haunts me. The lady has no idea what it is, but she can't help but pay attention. The head rises up. The same screen hangs there, on which everything you need to know is written. The girl's look is contemptuous because she is pretty tired. The girl ended up in a novel, not a computer game, so it's annoying. This could be due to movement, as if something had changed suddenly, although in fact it only seems so. The thoughts are interrupted by Annie, who brings in the tray, smiling. She made tea according to the recipe that best suits His Majesty. The beauty arrived on time. The blonde wanted to ask something important and found a test subject. She points to a luminous square, which, it seems, never managed to disappear. Shaking her head, the brunette assures that she sees nothing. Obviously, the saint is unwell again, and the blame lies with her. She expected this, but it was worth trying her luck. If you think like that, then the heroine has been only eating, sleeping, and working for 3 nights. Camilla constantly made pilgrimages, met with priests, as well as with the emperor and the crown prince himself. The blonde doesn't understand what everyone wants from her. She is not a real saint who has every right to be, so the experience is a little gut-wrenching. The girl has to hide behind her illness to explain why she does not appear in sanctuaries and temples. It is not easy for an imposter, and she will not be able to perform her duties as needed. The maid suddenly reminds of her presence. She told how her brother got sick, but just recently found out that he also got into some debts that needed to be paid off quickly so that the situation did not worsen. The young man cannot cope without Annie's help. The saint instantly frowns. She doesn't quite understand what exactly she wants from the heroine herself, because this is not her relative. She probably already tried to help. Smiling, the beauty asks to increase her salary. She doesn't even want it to be too much, because she only needs a little bit. The face is strangely distorted. This expression is painfully familiar. This is how those who wanted to take advantage of the maiden smiled. Of course, she is just an illegitimate child from a rich family, but the sly grin is familiar from her past life. In the book, the villainous Ariel was quite compassionate. That is why Annie, who is destined to be a servant for the rest of her life, decided to cash in on feelings. However, the story is completely different. The lady is not the previous girl who has disappeared for a long time, so she asks the maid if she gave her any money before. Immediately laughing lightly, the brunette says that she had already been helped out a lot before when they agreed to help her brother who needed it. You need to know why they ask this. Previously, Ariel paid the girl 650 francs, but she asks for at least another 50. The salary of an ordinary maid from the book was only 200, but this is a completely different case. It became clear why the saint was always broke. It's a pity, but that day the blonde was not in the mood to talk about everything they had already started. She doesn't really care what they want from her, so she asks to listen. From this day forward, Annie will not receive a single coin at all. She, as a saint's maid, receives an excellent salary, but for some reason she dares to ask for more. Since the girl is so worried about her brother, she can bring him to the temple. There are not enough people at the stables, so if anything happens, the saint will arrange for him to be accommodated. The brunette begins to scream with all her might in order to somehow protest. This girl always considered the saint worse than herself, so, of course, she never expected a refusal. The beauty constantly encountered such people in her past life. She dares to behave so disrespectfully, even towards a high-ranking person. The girl looks with intense contempt, without any control over herself. It seems Ari has forgotten, but the man knows her secret, which she is afraid to tell the world. There is hatred splashing in Annie's eyes, which immediately manifests itself, crawling out. She knows that the saint is none other than an imposter who is hiding. Now everything has fallen into place. Ariel paid her not out of pity, or out of good intentions or generosity, but because the maiden threatened to reveal the secret. The brunette continues to say that if she tells everyone about the lady's origins, then everything will get worse. But the heroine can no longer hold back. She can go and tell everything. Surely the book Ariel would have continued to pay off until she was left without pants. It all started with 300 or 400 francs, but now they have reached 700. You can tell. In this case, the blonde will most likely be executed, but it is unclear what they will do with the servants. She hid the truth for the money they gave her. The girl will be treated much worse than the aristocrat that Reyhouse brought. The brunette cannot understand what they are saying to her, so she backs away in horror. The blonde is still a noblewoman, and although only half, she will die beautifully. There remain strong doubts about some girl from the servants that do not go away. Annie is simply jealous of the saint, although she is nothing of herself. When the girl found out everything, it was worth telling, but now they are in the same boat. In this case, there is absolutely nothing left. The beauty is not ready to risk her life, because in fact she wants to live just like everyone else, without problems. The blonde asks about the maid's family. They probably know everything too, because in this case she could not remain silent. It turns out that this is not entirely untrue. Annie falls to her knees. She asks for forgiveness for the arrogance she showed towards the saint. There was not even a desire for something to happen, so all that remains is to give up all the money. Virgo can't believe that Ariel allowed herself to be used like this. Forgiveness is interrupted because Reyhouse, who has been watching the whole picture, slowly enters the room. The girl starts screaming that there was a misunderstanding, but it's too late. A second later, the high priest raised his sword and killed the one who dared to contradict. The saint stands silently with her eyes wide open, almost bulging out of her head in surprise. The interlocutor shrugs, saying that circumstances left no other choice. The man probably has his own thoughts about everything that is happening. Annie did something wrong and should not have been threatened with revealing the secret. There was no guarantee that she wouldn't give him away later. In any case, you cannot behave like this, even if there are no prohibitions for such a high-ranking priest. He promises to clean everything up, asking the girl to rest. The whole problem is that the action was correct, since Annie could have asked for the entire salary of a saint. She didn't even have time to scream, and it's scary to realize that soon such a fate awaits Ari herself. Turning her head, the blonde looks forward at the same bright window on which the same inscription is displayed. More thoughts come to mind. Reyhouse cannot get out of his head what the saint said in that room. She paid the girl only $650 a month, but her appetites increased more and more. The young man doesn't remember his ward being so decisive. Previously, she was afraid to even say a word against her offenders, but now everything has changed very much. In any case, there is nothing good in praising a girl, because if she had even a drop of brains, it would not have come to this. It is clear that everything was started from the very beginning. The Temple of Ilium, where Reyhouse serves, is a place of veneration of the 9 gods. The saint serves all gods, but the high priest serves only one, whom he was given to choose from. The young man serves the god of art Monty. This is the only one to whom he can obey, and to whom he has the right to pray in the temple. Everyone had their own choice, and it falls on different things. The maid once again asked for forgiveness for the mistake she had made. Everyone goes crazy over salad, even if it's a small thing. It was all because of Annie's death. The maids leave quickly, so much so that it is even impossible to remember their names. We must not forget that the heroine is in another world, where everyone treats human life differently. Nobody cares anymore. Reyhouse can also be understood. If it is revealed that the beauty is an imposter, then a real commotion will begin that will no longer be able to be stopped. This will harm the entire empire. However, this does not apply to Ariel herself. The longer she waits, the less chance she has of surviving. Annie was killed, but the blonde is no different from her. Dialogue boxes are getting scarier. It is said that the path to prophecy is open. Virgo writes down which store you can buy. She definitely can't afford the big one, but if she sells all sorts of things, she can afford the medium one. Ari from the book was stupid and apathetic. In this case, things are not entirely bad. If you hide well, Reyhouse will forget about the girl in a short period of time. Now that the lady no longer has to give 65% of her salary to the maid, you can quite save up for your dream. There are only 3 years left for everything to be more real. The girl is distracted from the notes she is making. Someone knocks on the door, so she stands up abruptly at the moment when she sees Reyhouse in front of her with his eternally dissatisfied expression on his face. Entering a saint without knocking is not the best idea. His manners have obviously disappeared, but in order not to worsen the situation, the beauty stands up and bows. The lady was completely absorbed in her studies, and this is noticeable from the stacks of different textbooks that were stacked on the table at which she had been sitting all this time. She understands that she needs to cover her tracks. The girl should not let her know about her plans, otherwise the man will immediately guess everything, even without further clues. She prepared a speech for the prince's birthday. It was written by a real heroine, but today the little thing came in handy. Taking the piece of paper in his hands, the blonde slowly begins to read, jumping from line to line. It all starts with the girl writing to her beloved prince, which already sounds strange. The young man was born for love, which was bequeathed by 9 gods. Virgo writes how glad she is to feel the love that is coming to her. The face immediately turns red from extreme shame. The girl knew that the lady was too naive, but she did not know that everything was so bad. There can be no excuse for this because Kyle doesn't love her. The blonde says she has changed her mind. She needs to rewrite everything again so that everything is normal and correct. She definitely doesn't love the prince, who means nothing. Obviously, Reyhouse was thinking about the wrong love, and this is the only excuse. She loves Kyle like the gods love their children, and love is God's grace given to humanity. It seems that the high priest began to worry. What if the future emperor thinks about the same love that Reyhouse thought about? They could all be in big trouble. Ariel believed that this speech was a great congratulations that could not be brushed aside, but it is possible that Prince Kyle would take everything quite seriously. The blonde can't even imagine how something like this can be read in public. The high priest is right, and if everything is that bad, the beauty will definitely rewrite everything unnecessary. It's better not to mislead anyone. The beauty receives praise for the fact that she is growing before her eyes and does not believe that she was given a compliment for such a trifle, which does not even mean anything. The girl wanted to grab the paper, but it fell right out of the blonde's hands. He doesn't give her a chance to do anything because the first one bends down to pick up what he accidentally dropped. The young man quickly hands over the little thing. Ariel turns away because she immediately realized that the best solution would be not to look him in the eyes at all, so as not to spoil anything for herself. The next morning, the saint arrived at the library. She should definitely forget that moment of shame because it will lead nowhere. You need to focus on preparing for the holiday, which will be the next day. While the girl was wondering if she needed some guidance, she noticed sounds coming from the third shelf. There is a man pressing a woman against the wall when she asks her to leave him alone. The brunette does not agree. Go to dinner together once, and nothing will change. In addition to all this, the lady is not even a nun since she was not officially ordained. This is just a formality. Only faith matters. The heroine does not know how to protect herself, so she says that she will go to the sanctuary and tell the saint everything. The blonde can no longer watch this picture, so she interrupts. She suggests leaving the nun alone and looking for a girlfriend outside of Ilium. The man immediately says that he didn't do anything, but the brunette again says that he was pestering. It becomes clear to him that everyone has agreed, so there is no desire to do anything. The young man moves further away, but is not going to leave the temple so quickly. The saint asks what kind of family this man comes from, and he willingly introduces himself. His name is Hans of the Ragefield family. The girl had never heard of anyone like that, which makes it clear that they are not as famous as they seemed. He introduced himself and asks the others to do the same. The oath of your name and surname has already been pronounced. The hero will personally go to the sanctuary and talk about the humiliation he experienced, which made him feel insignificant. They dare to ignore him, so anger bursts out. The lady asks for clarity on who exactly has the right to excommunicate a person, and this is something worth hearing. The girl nods eagerly. She is still a little scared, but she is not going to back down when she has already received support and help. This person will pay, although he does not yet realize it. The power of excommunication belongs to the patriarch, the high priest, and also to the saint who is now right in front of them. Others may only wish to comment. The saint has the right to excommunicate, and at the same time she can deprive her of the title of nobility that takes so long to earn. This applies not only to the troublemaker. Hans shouldn't believe in what's happening. The beauty steps forward and covers the guy's mouth so that he doesn't get on his nerves. She introduces herself, and then it becomes clear. The woman moves away, casually shaking off her hands as if from dirt. She will write a complaint against the entire Ragefield family who dared to raise such a degenerate. A second later, Hans falls to his knees, beginning to tearfully ask for forgiveness for a mistake that he himself made completely by accident. Forgiveness must be asked to the nun. If the young man still believes that he has done nothing, then he is deeply mistaken. The eyes of the 9 gods cannot make mistakes, so it is better to just shut up and start begging for mercy. Kneeling down in front of the girl, the brunette says, "Forgive me." At this point, the conflict is finally over, but this doesn't mean anything yet, so it's better to just step away. Calling the maid to her, the beauty asks her to bring a collection of books on court etiquette, which will be needed very soon. Blue Eyes freezes when she once again hears a strange sound. Those who have existed since the beginning of time became interested this time in the sense of justice, which is well developed. The ability to receive prophecies has opened. Ariel is the first person to receive such an opportunity, so she should definitely be happy. It seems that the saint interested the gods. because after the new opportunities, several gods joined, who immediately began a light skirmish among themselves and getting to know each other. The notifications are pretty boring, even though not much time has passed. It feels like some newfangled club has opened, which everyone immediately found out about. The ability to receive prophecies is an innate ability of a saint, but no exceptions are mentioned, because in this case, it should definitely be an exception. Looking again at the blue screen, which in the end is not going to go out, the beauty thinks about what can be done. It would be nice to turn it off. The gods begin to rush around in a panic and try to prevent the function of receiving a prophecy from being turned off. She agrees to do nothing, so the god of knowledge begins to trust. It feels like the internet was finally returned to them, or that someone caught a radio wave on a desert island, which is why they connected so quickly in a few seconds. No matter how much the lady wants, she will have to put up with it. It's strange that in the end, Ariel remains a fake saint who can now receive prophecies. Chest distracts the beauty from her thoughts. The next step is to activate the sensor. The beauty seems to be lifted into the air, and she tries to freeze. Virgo literally absorbs the contents of the book that lies in front of her. It's a strange feeling, as if she's reading dozens or even hundreds of volumes at once. Even books that are not in the library appear before your eyes. There is a collection of congratulatory speeches for the court, or how one should behave at events in the palace. You don't have to worry about anything, but everything goes by too quickly. The girl understands that everything is over. Too low a prophecy level only hinders everything. Next comes the blessing of the god of knowledge has said, with the help of which we manage to assimilate all this necessary information, which we had already managed to get into our head. It's as if my head has become 100 times better, and as soon as my gaze shifts to the book, it seems that everything has settled down. The work will go much faster if you believe in how it will be. Everything is somehow too sudden, but it seems that great luck smiled on Ariel, since even the gods themselves, who are usually available only to saints, have already agreed to help her. Several hours passed at work, but the lady was quite tired. She stretches because she needs to warm up a little. The shower helped quite a lot. The day before, the lady read too much, but even she knows that you shouldn't forget about rest, so as not to spoil your health, and so that your motivation doesn't disappear either. The blessing of Hesed lasted only a few hours, but the wonderful feeling when information comes straight to your head will never be forgotten. As soon as the effect wears off, everything returns to normal. There's a knock on the door. Ari thought it was another maid, but this time it turned out to be Reyhouse, who came to visit the saint and ask how she slept last night. The girl did a good job. Monty, the god of art, is unable to take his eyes off the man and how beautiful he is. The heroine thanks for your concern. It was necessary to prepare a new speech for the prince's birthday, so as not to disgrace the church. Therefore, yesterday, the maiden also did this. If the heroine wants to survive, she must behave more or less sincerely. It will be difficult to build good relationships with everyone, but it is possible. The blonde seemed to freeze, as if the maiden had misbehaved. Ari apologizes for acting like a child earlier. She knows that as soon as a real saint appears, she will be thrown out, but until then she will try not to cause trouble. The words feel like cutting the skin with a cold piece of ice. Reyhouse has already said that Ilium is the new home of the aristocrat, so he does not want to hear anything. It seems that since the girl, like Annie, knows the man's secret, he will not let her out alive. She must take it with her, but for now, she does not want to give away her experiences. The young man reads the speech delivered by the saint. She is good, but I can't believe that the lady has matured so much during this time. I can't believe it was all written by myself. To avoid suspicion, she took the speech from a book. Taking the piece of paper back, the lady thanks for the compliments. She simply copied them from the collections and changed them a little. Not surprisingly, everything turned out much better than expected. The young man remembers what he heard. Recently, there was some kind of scandal in the library. The maiden went there to prepare for a speech, but saw Hans molesting one of the followers. Like a saint, the heroine gave him a warning. She may have gone a little overboard, but that's okay. It is not necessary to go into details of how the girl behaved at that moment. The man suddenly says that he excommunicated the cake degenerate and the entire Ragefield family. In the future, if something like this happens, the lady should immediately inform the high priest so that he can deal with it. Chest believes that the blonde has a rotten soul that should be avoided. This can be seen even by his appearance, not to mention the way he behaves most of the time. The god of art claims that the soul is not as important as the appearance, which overshadows everything else. They started a quarrel out of nowhere, again driving the maiden into panic because the high priest might suspect something. The man asks if everything is okay with the beauty, and she actively nods. She is simply amazed by her determination, because it is not so easy to get rid of rot, and it is difficult to distinguish those who are unclean in heart. Other priests condemned the young man's decision regarding Annie, but the maiden thinks completely differently. It seems that the heroine thinks that the man acted correctly and fairly when he took her life. The young man always does what he should, and at the same time does not make any mistakes that seem unacceptable. At least, that's what the beauty thought when she read the book. Unlike the prince, who pursued his own interests, Reyhouse decided to deceive the saint, only to calm the people, who began to ask many questions in relation to everything that was happening. For the villainous Ariel, the guy was an executioner, but for Camilla, he was a real protector who you could always rely on, especially in bad moments. If the lady were reborn as a saint, she would probably admire her. Turning away, the young man asks for forgiveness for taking away precious time. Wishing you a bon appetit, he hides his eyes, in which strange emotions most likely have appeared. The blonde sighs with relief. She still doesn't understand what exactly she said wrong, because it still seems that she managed to cope with her task quite well. Virgo turns her gaze to the glowing screen, where the gods continue their active discussion. Chest insists that the soul is much more important than appearance, but the god of art disagrees, saying that the opposite is true. Reyhouse doesn't understand at all when everything changed so quickly. He hadn't noticed that the girl had blue eyes, but now he finally did. Words are spinning in his head that he did the right thing, even if he didn't think so himself. The girl always seemed to have such a bright, sweet smile that lit up the room with rays of sunshine. The hero chose this person only because she is stupid and naive enough to unquestioningly fulfill her role, which was chosen by other people. It doesn't matter to a man how much the beauty has changed, because he must take care of other things that are still in progress. My thoughts are interrupted by someone's loud scream. It's Haynes, the priest from the temple, who bursts in even without a trace to say hello. He recalls an incident in the library that happened recently. For some reason, he was not even consulted. Even if the saint herself decided to excommunicate the entire family from the church, it is not clear how Reyhouse agreed to this without question. You can't excommunicate everyone because of just one member who misbehaved. The man protests, but is immediately interrupted. He must remain silent because everything was done differently. The family was expelled not because Hans did anything wrong, but because they were all involved in collusion with some priests from the temple. One person once said that getting rid of rot is not so easy. In fact, this time the blonde does not agree, because what happened only made the young man feel better. Reyhouse is going to cut off all the rotten shoots that are growing in different directions. He asks the other person's opinion, even if, in fact, he doesn't care at all about his thoughts. Starting to stutter, Haynes steps back so that, if anything happens, he does not fall under the hot hand. He just hopes that in the future the high priest will consult with him, because that is the best thing that can be done. In addition to all this, the man believes that the saint is not fulfilling her duties. It would be nice if she didn't abuse her power, because people have faith. His eminence has the right to decide for himself, but it's worth thinking about. The young man ends this conversation, moving on to more important matters. Recently, Priest noticed dark energy coming from the heirs mine. An abnormal number of monsters was also noticed there. Usually, when people have nothing to do, they fill their heads with all sorts of nonsense. But this time, the young man will leave his interlocutor to do. He will go to the Ari's mine to check everything. In this case, Haynes does not know when he will be able to return, and he cannot leave the temple. He also says that he is already old and weak. The face shows horror that cannot be hidden. You really can't leave the church, but you also can't contradict the orders of the high priest that he gives. A smile appears on the face, behind which the true intentions are hidden. A girl arrived at the saint's chambers and insisted on an audience with the girl. The beauty had already seen this man somewhere, and it was true, because they had met in the library a little earlier. The brunette wants to say something, but does not immediately find the strength to utter a word. She wants to serve Ariel as a maid and simply a faithful assistant. Humbling the girl with a look of complete indifference, the heroine assures that she no longer needs servants, which she does not hire. Unlike ordinary people, Anna has magic, which may not turn out well. Still not giving up, The girl remembers that that day in the library, she didn't even have time to thank her for how they helped her out. Hans almost got his way through threats. Realizing that other arguments are needed here, the blonde kicks out her maid, leaving Anna alone. She reminds us that just recently, one of the devoted maids died right in front of the girl's eyes. This all happened because that girl did not know how to keep her mouth shut. There were so many things that connected them, but that's how it all ended. The nun is unlikely to be able to avoid the same fate, even if she wants to. The brunette doesn't give up. She is not going to leave with nothing, so she confidently shouts that she wants to help. Everything needs to remain as it should be. The lady says that she is an orphan and was raised by her uncle. She was lucky to be in the temple where she was accepted. Despite everything that happened, life remained about the same as before. Virgo could never stand up for herself, although she tried countless times. All that was possible was to cry and beg to leave her alone so that nothing else would happen. That day, everything changed in the library. The nobleman apologized to Anna for the first time and did so quite confidently. The saint illuminated the beauty's life, and she wants to become just like her. The girl is destined to serve the gods all her life, and this is unchanged. In this case, you can also devote your life to Ariel, who treats her people well despite the incident. The heroine is afraid of dying without repaying the kindness she was shown, so she will do everything possible to survive and help in the future. In her past life, Ari herself tried to survive, which sounds strange. Nodding her head, the blonde seems to agree. As long as the lady serves the saint herself, no one will touch her. She cannot guarantee the safety of the family itself, so this is where the contract ends. I would like to know if the beauty had changed her mind before this moment, and this turns out to be true, because the girl actively nods, saying that everything is completely fine. The thoughts remain the same. The heroine is about to go to an important event. She is met by a man who says that he is honored to accompany the beauty on her journey. His name is Duane, who is the commander of the Second Army. The blonde nods her head. She is, of course, happy about the acquaintance that just happened. A smile lights up the face, and the eyes convey good intentions. The lady has been sitting idle for a long time, literally hiding inside her room. Now they are going to the imperial palace for a banquet on the occasion of the crown prince's birthday. Looking out the carriage window, the maiden carefully watches the wall, which still won't end. From the outside, the temple is much larger than it seemed, because even the drive to the gate takes quite a long time. When the lady gets ready to leave Elium to start her happy life away from the gates, she will need a horse to help. There are stables next to the main building, so it's worth learning how to ride a horse. Driving through the main square outside, the beauty watches as people around shout the name of the saint, who waves her hand in response. This feeling is a little strange. Nothing surprising, really. Everyone in the country loves and reveres the main character because she carries with her the will of the 9 gods who bless the people. The blonde sighs. She likes the attention, but she still considers herself a fake who doesn't deserve anything. She wonders if the messages she receives are actually sent by the gods who communicate with her like this. Turning around, the beauty again sees the same screen and an alert about a new notification. Chest, the god of knowledge, expresses his displeasure, which in itself sounds threatening. The girl is not a real saint, so she asks to prove that real gods communicate with her. Suddenly, lightning appears in the clear sky and disappears almost immediately, causing horror. Now it has become clear that there is no point in doubting. The beauty turns away and smiles. Odysseus wonders what the reason for the fun is, but the lady is glad that at least they are not reading minds. The carriage arrived at the imperial palace. The assembled aristocrats openly stare, but this is no longer a new thing for the beauty, so she tries to calm down. You need to be confident and keep your chin up. The look should also be more decisive, so that people understand that jokes with the saint are bad. Lifting her dress a little, the maiden walks further to the throne along the path, which is laid out in the middle of the hall. The Emperor Lauken Jansen Elida and the Empress Rosa Elida appear before the heroine. This couple is known throughout the empire, which is quite realistic, knowing their strength and influence on everyone else. Rosa is the daughter of Count Michael, and she became empress only 3 years ago. Standing next to the emperor, clutching the hilt of his sword, is Crown Prince Kyle Alexis Elida, with whom the real Ariel is in love. Bowing, the maiden says that it is an honor for her to congratulate His Highness on his 20th birthday. Elium blesses the imperial family, who have been waiting for the envoy since the morning. Lauken asks the girl to raise her head, and she obeys. Kyle looks at the heroine without looking away. She knew that their relationship was so-so, but he did not even hide his hatred, which was obvious. The most important part begins. The speech. God created the world and divided power into 9 parts. His mercy fell on the empire and made it prosperous, and the brave emperor was rightfully chosen by the God of justice. The crown prince was born with the blessing of Ciel, the god of destruction. Being the most erudite man in the country, he helped her and established a theocracy. The empire will be blessed. All of them are under the patronage of His Majesty. They congratulate him on his birthday, and this is addressed to the only heir, who will very soon join the legitimate government. Not only the god of destruction, but also the other 9 gods bless the man. The heroine stretches her hands forward so that Elida places his palm there. The young man seems to incinerate the girl with a look that is still full of hatred that does not go away. She is now much worse than the others, so this is worth taking note of. Finally, the hero holds out his palm to be kissed on the back of it. The saint tries to restrain herself because she has to endure such humiliation in front of a whole crowd of different people. It's good that the lady didn't make any mistakes. Otherwise, everything would have turned out even worse than it already was. It's strange that Ari would voluntarily want to do something like this. Elida wants to say something, but is interrupted by an explosion. Something happened, but people cannot understand what exactly, so they simply start to panic, which is of no use. Kyle steps forward, shielding the girl who has fallen to the ground. Lightning, out of a clear sky, struck the statue of the first emperor, which was located in the distance of the hall. This happened after the completion of the wonderful speech, which was already completed. The bronze statue is completely destroyed, and this cannot be a good sign. Even Rosa, who had previously been silently sitting on the sidelines, comments on what happened quite quickly. There is not a cloud in the sky, which means that these are the tricks of the god, he said. Virgo immediately turns to him, trying to speak as quietly as possible. No one else sees any hint of another lightning bolt. Monte felt discomfort when Ariel kissed the prince's hand, and the god of knowledge just imagined how he clicked his tongue. They all feel unfair. Chest again lost heart because of what had happened, and the god of art heard him click his tongue. Closing her eyes, the lady sighs heavily, because she understands that she definitely won't survive. All that was left of the emperor's statue were fragments. People begin to whisper, not understanding what awaits them next. Perhaps this is a sign that when Kyle takes the throne, the empire will be destroyed. There's a strange constricted feeling in the chest that does not allow you to breathe peacefully. The girl tries to calm down, but nothing comes of it. Thoughts are distracted by Rose, who is saying something. The lady chuckles. No one could even think that something like this could happen. Even the saint graced the event with her arrival, and yet something went wrong only because of Elida. She and the prince don't seem to get along very well. The situation is really quite dangerous, because everything happened after the girl's words, and if Kyle harbors a grudge, everything will only get worse. The emperor addresses the blonde. It is a little humiliating to say what he is about to say, but I would like to ask that the temple pray for the well-being of the empire in the future. The girl promises that she will tell the gods that the man is happy about what happened. His Highness was born under the star of Ciel, the god of destruction, and this is known to everyone in the room. Destruction and creation always go hand in hand, so we can say that destruction is the mother of all things. The lady is trying to make the situation stabilize a little. The saint wants to say that this was the blessing of the god Ciel. The emperor does not believe, just like the empress, who is trying to say something against everything that is happening. It was obvious that this was divine power. God wanted to congratulate the heir so much that he was not even able to restrain himself. That's all I can say with a smile on my face. What happened was literally a bolt from the blue, because it happened completely by accident. We need to tell the gods to stop doing this and control themselves better if possible. We need to understand what kind of relationship Kyle and Rose have. This incident is settled, and you can return home, but the maiden is stopped by none other than the prince, who stood in her way. The man, as usual, looks with a menacing gaze. The holiday has just begun, so he hopes that he will not be abandoned at the very beginning after being literally saved. It seems the young man is about to say something. He is silent for a while, but then says that the lady is a little different from her usual self because she behaves strangely and more rationally. This is all due to the fact that the heroine alone solves such a complex problem. He would not be surprised if someone said that the lady is now a completely different person who is different. The lifestyle was too idle, like for a saint, so the beauty decided to try to change, Kyle believes, but wants it explained to him. Digging through his pockets, the young man pulls out a sheet of paper, which he pokes in his face. Just recently, he received a letter from a girl in which he was offered to marry young Ariel. Elita was ready for a lot, because he knew the girl's attitude, but he did not know that she would go so far. In her head, the maiden curses her friend, because she really crossed all lines. It seems that the young lady forgot about her duty to the temple when she wrote all this. It's worth calming down and thinking, because even though the letter contains an offer, it is written in a rather childish way, maybe either a beautiful refusal or a rude refusal, which is completely different when the sword is pulled out. First, you need to try to justify yourself, because the lady assures that it was a stupid mistake. Lowering her eyes to the floor, the beauty assures that she was not herself and drank a little too much. She even sent everything to the messenger, but now she regrets. Something hit her head and forced her to do something like this. The lady wants this mistake to be forgotten, since she was able to help the prince in difficult times. The mistake cannot be so sincere, and it sounds convincing from the lips of someone who read the letter. Kyle is shocked, because Ariel missed and thought about the prince every night. She even managed to write that she would be very happy if her proposal was accepted, and tried to push it. Everything was presented in detail that was definitely not worthy of anyone else reading about it. Ariel, it's over, because she had no right to write anything like that. The thought pops into my head about what needed to be done. The girl had to return home while she was still able to do so. The man pulls out a whole story of 8 pages. The blonde throws away all her moral principles, saying that she drank a whole barrel of wine, which then greatly influenced the consciousness. It's impossible to even remember what was written about. Elita is not impressed. He believes that people become more honest when they are drunk. Sometimes they talk about their true desires, which they previously hid from others so that no one finds out. This cannot be true. The lady asks to pretend that nothing happened and that blessing will be part of the apology that is given. The girl had no intention of upsetting His Highness. To avoid such situations in the future, the heroine promises to be much more careful before doing anything. It seems that she is literally laughing at the prince. Grabbing the saint's hand, the young man says that he did not sleep for many nights after receiving the letter, still thinking about what exactly he should say before answering, or simply throw it out of his head. Now the lady says that alcohol is to blame. The conversation is interrupted by another bolt of lightning, which again, like a bolt from the blue, descends a few meters from the couple. The next thing that happens is water splashes out of the fountain nearby. This is another phenomenon that is accomplished with the help of the gods who are going to protect Ariel. Taking advantage of the moment, the saint breaks free from the strong grip that has already begun to compress her body. She hears the prince behind him trying to stop, but nothing happens because she is faster. Noticing the carriage, the maiden quickly jumps inside. She asks Dwayne to evacuate immediately. 10 minutes later, my heart is still beating fast, and everything is swimming before my eyes. The lady managed to escape. Chest, the god of knowledge, hears himself asked whether it was he who did everything. This time, the lady sincerely thanks for the help, because it was the unexpected lightning that helped a lot. Odysseus pats the god of knowledge on the back and praises him for his decisive actions. Monty regrets that he judged the others earlier and says that it will never happen again. Before the lady's eyes, there is still a picture of Kyle, who screamed that he had not slept for several nights after receiving the letter. His cheeks were flushed, and there was some strange emotion in his eyes that was difficult to read. It becomes more and more scary from what will happen next, and even the heroine herself understands that she needs to take care of what to do in the future. So far, nothing like this has happened, so all that remains is to escape back to Ilium. People from the crowd that gathered in just half an hour are making noise around. The man points to the next item, which is an Earl Bulmer ceramic jug. As it turned out, holy water from the ancient Urus temple was once stored in it. Next, the chief announces the starting price, which is only 100 francs. Then the auction begins, and different prices begin. The blonde with her mouth open watches how quickly everything happens. She sees how a second later the jug was already sold for 200 francs, which was the last price. Some girl bought the thing. In order to come here, I had to try, but there was no way out. It was the will of Monty, who just wanted to admire art and various beautiful things. When Dwayne asked what they forgot there, the lady just shrugged. Stories like this happen from time to time, and everyone around us knows about it. Trinkets bought at auction turn out to be treasures, making the person who bought them a millionaire. The girl is not going to leave everything to chance, because she really needs money to buy the store that she wants so badly. Monty will definitely help identify something valuable, and they will do it together. As soon as a valuable item appears, the god of art will hint, and so it will become clear that it is worth participating in the transaction. The leader on stage names the next thing, which becomes something belonging to Countess Altmer. This is a dagger that looks very good. It is created from bronze and dragon bones. Many say that this simple blade contains divine power, which is concentrated in the tip that everyone wanted to get their hands on. It was easy to guess that this thing was not the most valuable. The auction uses a fairly familiar method of adding small pieces of something valuable to the goods, but Monty stares at the thing intently. The First Lady already names the price of 50 francs. God still looks forward, as if deciding to take an important step. After a few seconds, the man finally says that he wants to get the dagger, so the saint holds up a number, indicating that she is participating. The Virgin managed to buy the item at the last second for 100 francs, which turned out to be not the highest price. The auction is over, and it's more exciting than it sounds. The girl tells the servant that they should go somewhere. After a while, the couple arrived at a street that would remain inconspicuous for security reasons. They found themselves near a sign that said it was a Traders Guild with the name Eloyd. The heroine begins to remember everything she knows about this institution and how important it is. The most powerful guild owner in the empire is located there. This man is also the main male character, Cass Lloyd. The man is the heir to one of the largest enterprises. Walking inside, the blonde notices the man behind the counter and sighs because he's not the main character. He was the only one who had no connections with Ariel, so he would not want to meet by pure chance. This trade guild has the most talented appraisers. They are ready to evaluate the product and then even buy it at an inflated price so that it is beneficial to both parties. The young man asks how he can help. The girl smiles welcomingly, taking out a package. She has something to sell because she needs to use all available means. You can't tell by appearance whether a dagger is expensive or not, so we had to take extreme measures. God could not say that this is not valuable, so the lady is waiting for an assessment. While the procedure is being carried out, the lady inspects the counters. Even their assortment is at a completely different level, even so that one can feel professionalism. The young man finishes and begins to talk about the little thing. The dagger turned out to be a good specimen, because it contains a fairly high content of dragon bones. The item is also not very worn, so it will be valued a little higher than it actually should have been in the first place. The bones give value, so in the end, it can be sold for 300 francs. The girl cannot stop rejoicing, because they really helped her get a more important thing and money. The servant bends down to find out how it was possible to find out that the dagger at auction would be so expensive. The beauty chuckles, and then says that God told her. Monty is happy with honesty, and that's the most important thing. After the sale, the screen opened the shop function due to the heroine having accumulated wealth with God's help. Upon arriving back in Ilium, the woman met Anna, who began to smile from the doorway. The 5-day training to serve as a saint is completed, so from that very day the nun can be relied upon in all matters. Nodding in response, Ari immediately asks for the first request, which is quite simple. The girl should bring violet pie and apple tea, to which she immediately agrees and disappears from the room. It was as if the lady had a younger sister, whom she had never had in her life. The heroine decides to focus on the new feature that has been unlocked, because it is worth moving forward. The first thing the lady learned in the new world was that it was possible to speak with the gods through prophecy. Due to the low level, it is impossible to communicate with everyone at once, but in the future, everything will change. With the help of others, it is possible to improve your skills and abilities through blessing and inspiration. Now, a new ability has opened up because Monty can help with the auction in order to earn money. Now, you should focus on how to develop the store that has opened. The lady can try to ask the gods for advice at any time, but no one knows what will come of it because she is destined to do everything on her own. The heroine was already accustomed to using the window with messages, but could not even imagine that there could be more functions here. Pictures of closed objects that have to be opened quickly flash before your eyes. Several screens resemble an interface, like in some kind of game. The saint decides that everything needs to be checked. An invoice appears showing 0 francs. If the currency is the same, then it's worth putting everything from real life there. If the heroine has nothing, there is no point in it. This news is a little sad, but first you can get a reward. She will still have to ask for advice, because the girl does not know how to deposit money into a virtual account. Extending her hand, Celestine clicks on confirmation of the operation, and she is handed a multifunctional bag, which should carry some knowledge or important items. There is no money there, so with the help of easy calculations, the beauty realized that she could deposit money into her account using the bag. 500 francs ended up in the virtual window, but the weight of the thing remained exactly the same, which will be very useful in the future. The replenishment problem has been resolved, but many items are still blocked. The low level still remains a problem with which nothing can be done and which only irritates Ariel more. All that remains is to buy simple items and small potions. All of these things don't look particularly useful, but they can also increase strength, which will then increase the level at which everything else can be purchased. Raising the level will be difficult, but still possible. The lady needs to think about what to do next, but she understands that the best option is to put all her savings into an account. Monte, like everyone else, listens to what the lady says out loud. He shakes his head at the strength of his ambition. No one knows how everything will end, but the heroine is still confident that everything will be as good as possible. The god of art declares that the value of art is not in material value. They are accomplices, but what is being said now does not sound very comradely. At the auction, the man was the happiest of all when he was able to see a whole bunch of trinkets from a long time ago. Even if he helped, it still doesn't mean anything. The gods decided to entrust the saint with the first secret mission. This means that you can prove your faith by collecting funds. In order to receive the reward, you will have to donate all the money from the multifunctional bag. Grabbing the screen, the lady starts screaming, asking if it's okay for them to do this. Monty is silent, and Hased tries to change the subject so as not to fall under the hot hand. The rest pretend they just don't hear. The blonde sighs heavily. No amount of persuasion works, so you will have to part with everything you manage to collect. If they knew how difficult it was to hide money from Reyhouse, they would probably also demand to give everything back. In any case, they always helped the heroine. Even if sometimes they behave like little children, no one said that this is prohibited. If higher intelligences are asking for it, the mission is unlikely to harm Ariel. The girl grabs her bag and then looks bitterly at her account, which has 0 francs left. There is sadness, but you will be able to earn money again. We can assume that this was payment for help. The young lady proved her sincere faith by giving away what was most important at the moment when everything happened. The 3 gods agree to share their divine power, and the body is chosen to be the seat of pure power. Bright tongues engulf Celestine, lifting her into the air. Divine power is finally unlocked as a reward for a new mission. The body became warmer, as if the maiden had been sat near the fireplace. A few seconds later it was all over, but too imperceptibly. The heroine feels nothing. Each of those gathered congratulates the ward on the discovery of divine talent. Now it has become clear what exactly has changed, because it seems that because of Chesed, my thoughts have come into complete order. Monte makes the interior, which used to look luxurious, seem ordinary. The chandelier seems quite ordinary, and this is no longer so important. Every flaw hurts the eyes. Odysseus's blessing did not bring any benefits, because the girl did not even have a loved one. She knows nothing about love, so she decided to forget about everything at least for a while. There are still some oddities that cannot be left aside. Saints can only use the limited power of a particular god, but for Ariel herself, everything is different, and she herself did not notice this from the very beginning. Using divine power without boundaries added to the questions. The only person in history capable of the test is Bergerita. Now, for some reason, such power was given to some imposter. Ariel means nothing in this world, so there is no point in thinking about anything. When the main character appears, you will need to make room. The power that has appeared forces us to ask questions about what is happening. Sighing, the lady leans back. She doesn't know what to think, so she completely forgets who she's talking to. The young man asks if there is any problem, because he notices a strange complexion, but the lady shakes her head, saying that she is just busy. Jumping up from her seat, the heroine almost screams from the horror that quickly overtook her. She thought that Anna was nearby, but Reyhouse arrived instead. Now I have to apologize for my disrespectful behavior. The girl thinks about why the hero came so unexpectedly without any warning. I can't believe that Dwayne told about the dagger from the auction that was sent to the Lloyd Guild. Selling purchased items that do not even belong to the heroine herself is almost the same as running away from her home in the middle of the night without warning. Hoarding money is also one of the most terrible actions that cannot be told to the high priest. The man, as it turned out, does not mind being addressed in an informal manner. To speak on an equal footing with the head priest is the highest ignorance, so the girl tries to immediately refuse without burying her face in the mud. The strange thing is that the young man continues to ask for the same thing, although he is not even drunk and is of sound mind. The cheeks were covered with a red color that had previously been absent from the moment the person entered the saint's chambers. Still, deciding not to spoil anything, the beauty agrees to call the guy Mr. Reyhouse, but he is not satisfied with even this option. I would like the name to sound without a prefix, which even Celestine herself is a little embarrassed. The lady steps back, trying not to give up. She needs to think it over carefully, because you can only call one of your friends that way. With the blonde, they are simply in a business relationship that does not cross the line. A realization flashed in the young man's eyes, which did not immediately betray him. He grabs his head with his hand, asking for forgiveness for saying something differently than he should have. The words seem to come out on their own. Virgo asks about the well-being of the interlocutor, because she does not understand what exactly is happening. He came in to say hello, but now he feels something strange in his heart, and this feeling still doesn't want to go away. It seems as if the world has turned upside down, because, watching someone whom the hero himself did not want to see, he has other thoughts. I would like to say that the man was very bored and wanted to see his friend as soon as possible. Reyhouse reaches forward, but after a few minutes he realizes that something is wrong. He turns away and immediately rushes to the exit, slamming the doors behind him so that nothing more can be said to him. It seems that the man is sick. A bell notifies you of a new notification. Odysseus, the god of love, admires Reyhouse's fortitude before the blessing. The guys in the chat begin to discuss the high priest who just escaped, almost starting a new skirmish. The girl is distracted from conversations and monitoring messages by Anna, who has returned with tea from the saint's order. Sweets were also brought in the form of a pie, which was also ordered. The girl is filled with scarlet paint. She starts to think something. What I want to say will sound a little strange, but the lady considers the saint even more beautiful than usual, although they had met several times before. A strange man who did not love the main character with her beauty and charm. The brunette tries to find words, but doesn't know how to describe her special feeling, so she asks for forgiveness for what she said. Now, everything is falling into place. The point is the blessing of the god of love, who also influenced Reyhouse's behavior. Realization doesn't make it any easier, because nothing can be done about it, even if you want to. The girl is trying to kick Anna out. She promises that she will eat and drink tea a little later, because she wants to read alone. If anything is needed, the maid is ready to arrive at any time. But for now, there is no need for this. The man arrived in his office to the statue near which he usually prays. He still can't understand why he was thinking about strange things next to a girl who had never even really interested him. The hand is clenched into a fist with force in order to slightly restrain the emotions rushing out. All this looks like a strange kind of test or a price for atonement for crimes that were committed by other people, including the guy himself. The god of art will answer the question, but first he is asked to hear a prayer. The soul will always be righteous on the path of cleansing sins. The young man asks to heal a sinful body that does not deserve it with a blessing. If things continue as they are, the hero will no longer be able to bear it. The leaves of the rose slowly fall, just like the hopes inside a person. He doesn't know what to do next without the usual instructions. The saint went for a walk in the garden, listening to Anna's stories about her popularity, which came because of Ariel's ministry. One maid even asked about the heroine's taste preferences, although she was familiar with the rulers of the temple. The girl did not say anything, even after numerous questions, so she was warned about rumors. If they crawl, it will not be the fault of the maid, who only wanted the best. The blonde believes what was said. Even if Anna asked for forgiveness for something she didn't even do, it doesn't change anything, because the rumors continue to actively spread without stopping. After receiving divine power, the lady does nothing but go to the library to figure out how to find a way to replenish the budget, which exists all in the same screen. A saint is the religious leader of a nation. The palace and the temple are the two pillars on which the elite empire stands. It turns out that the girl is at the top of the temple as the most powerful person known about. Virgo refused to participate in almost all official events, citing health problems. That is why she will not have the popularity and influence like the previous saints. Strangely, the temple did not react to anything at all, simply leaving the decision to Ariel. Even if there are problems, Reyhouse will solve them, because he understands that sending a fake into the world would be quite stupid on his part. The heroine is distracted from her thoughts because she also needs to finish the conversation with Anna, who is already ready to cry. I would like to say that there is no point in proving something to everyone you meet. In fact, the saint does not care about the words of others. It doesn't matter to her what rumors will spread, because the most important thing is the faith of the people who remain faithful to the church, just like the rulers of the state. Anna begins to apologize, but the blonde interrupts her flow of words. It's okay, because she was just worried about her, even if she expressed herself a little differently than she should have. Something in the bushes attracts attention. As it turned out, this is a bluewing that lies in a puddle of scarlet liquid. The injuries are serious, which means the bird most likely will not survive. The baby is still trying to survive, but nothing seems to be working. The feeling of death before the soul leaves the body is truly terrible, and the heroine from a past life knows this. This is a struggle that is difficult to forget. The saint lifts the bird from the ground, saying that it's okay even if the clothes get dirty. Hugging the bluewing, the girl sighs heavily, closing her eyes. I would like the animal to continue to live its happy life as before. Anna gasps in surprise when she notices lights of bright white power gathering around her. The body of the one chosen by the gods is covered with light in the same way as the body of the bird that is in the hands. Not even a few seconds pass before the bird flies into the sky. Beautiful blue wings spread under the sun. The screen asks if the maiden wishes to receive the first reward for using divine power. The brunette on the side almost jumps from surprise and delight, which goes over the edge. She literally cannot contain herself, because this is the first time she has seen something like this, especially live, being nearby. Many priests heal people, but even with prayers and the Bible, it is not so easy to cure. In this case, the saint did not even pray, but simply used force to help the poor bird. She almost died, but then she took it and flew away. Realizing that no one can find out about what happened, the lady grabs the maid's shoulders, begging her not to tell anyone about what happened so unexpectedly. If you keep the power a secret, it will be much easier for everyone. The reason why Ariel didn't take more risks before is because she already knew the future. If it changes because of what's happening, then things will only get worse for everyone. In this alien new world, the beauty's fate is only in her hands, because no one will help a stranger who came from nowhere. I want a quiet life, which I will eventually get. Looking into the girl's eyes, the blonde again insistently asks not to tell anyone, remaining friendly. This is an order that cannot be disobeyed, so the nun nods her head. In order to at least somehow distract the girl, the heroine suggests going to the garden and taking a short walk, looking for some new variety of roses that appeared quite recently. It is not clear why it was necessary to do this with the bluewing, since it is not prey. Reyhouse explains to Lloyd that she needs to be trained better so she can stop biting her owner. The heir to one of the largest guilds raises his eyebrow as a sign of misunderstanding. The bird did not deserve such treatment, even as training. The young man had done this before, even if not with dogs. A picture of Annie pops into his head, but he quickly brushes it aside. Nobody knows how it worked. In a way, everything was as good as it could be, because she never bit her owner again. The man does not mention that the maid lost her life altogether. The hero thanks him for saving the white Latunia. He heard that such a climate does not suit her, so he will never forget virtue and what he did. For the guild, this is just a trifle, but receiving gratitude is still incredibly nice. Now the Ilium festival will be more than successful for all those present. Still inhaling the pleasant aroma, the hero says that they will transfer the flowers to the greenhouse and entrust them to the gardener as soon as the event is over. His Eminence is as callous as a cracker, but suddenly became interested in some plants. The bluewing flew back to its owner. The man thought that the dogs had badly beaten the bird, but she looked quite normal. There is a scarlet spot on the forehead, which is immediately noticeable. Lloyd understands that this is definitely the bird he chose for himself earlier, but does not understand how this happened. It seems that the baby was cured by a high-ranking priest. The work is like the help of the god of mercy, who took pity on the poor blueing who had to die peacefully because of the dogs that attacked her. As he says this, Reyhouse notices a saint in the distance. The girl didn't know that they both would gather in the garden, so she's going to leave quickly. You can't get noticed, so the heroine asks for forgiveness for being in the way and not knowing that the high priest had a guest. The escape was unsuccessful because the young man asked where his friend was going. She turns slowly, blessing all the guests of Ilium. The hero introduces his guest, who turns out to be the owner of the trade guild, Cass Lloyd, who bows his head as a sign of respect. He is honored to meet the Saint of Ilium, the Temple of the Nine Gods. It's strange that Lloyd appeared so unexpectedly, since they didn't meet in the original. Trying not to show her confusion, the beauty greets her guest properly. The blonde smiles the same strange smile, asking if the lady has come for a walk in the garden. If she had said she wanted to be there, she could have been escorted out, and that person was Reyhouse. Virgo cannot distract such a busy person. She and Anna walked by and simply distracted people from the conversation. The priest was called by a servant who asked him to personally supervise the construction site. It is already clear that everything is going as well as possible, because the beauty is going to run away quickly. She is not going to stay close to Cass, much less communicate about world issues. In order to leave, the lady had to say that she had some urgent matters that could not wait. The conversation is interrupted by a bluewing that flies up to the saint. Smiling, the girl gently strokes the bird, which is caressing. They had already met a little earlier. Of course, the lady is not going to mention under what exact circumstances everything happened. Cass chuckles. The baby was trained to fly only to her owner, but for some reason she became very attached to a stranger. The young man thought that the bird had been dead for a long time, and he said this as if he didn't care. He is the same type of person who measures and evaluates everything in monetary terms. This person ignores the pain and feelings of others because he doesn't care. Even pointing the sword at Camille was not a problem for him, so it was done with ease. A man has a piece of ice instead of a heart, which is not alien to love and compassion. It's not the blonde who saved the bird. She still asks the question of how they could abandon someone who could die. According to Lloyd, this is just an animal that is not worth any attention. For a man, someone's death is too indifferent, only because he has never encountered anything like this, and has not tried to escape from it with all his might. If he thinks that life is worthless, it is easier to kill him than to leave him to suffer. The girl is very different from the rumors because she says the right things. You shouldn't give up empty hope that something will change. It doesn't matter because the lady is glad the animal is okay. Before leaving, the lady asked Lloyd as the owner to value his pet, and he said that he was looking forward to meeting him again. The blonde does not want to see him again under any circumstances. The saint can no longer add to the problems that have already fallen on her head, as if out of nowhere. It's enough for the prince and Reyhouse to be annoying together without even knowing it. There is only one way to avoid shame, which will sooner or later catch up with you. It is to get away from Ilium. The gaze goes back to the glowing window with a new reward for using the power. A new level of prophecy has opened. Another god has been added. Seal. He gives his blessing almost immediately, so the new power slowly turns into the beauty's body. The power becomes more pronounced, and the lady slowly begins to realize that the one who was used as an excuse for the explosion at Kyle's birthday is precisely the god of destruction. In this case, it is worth trying to make the flow come out. The beauty looks around in the hope of finding something that can be quickly broken. The girl notices a chair that stands near the table and grabs the back. She thought that she would have a special power, but in the end, nothing happens, even after several attempts. The hopes are not in vain, because like a bolt from the blue, a sign comes down that splits the chair into two different parts. The chair knew the true power of Ciel. The girl continues to study in order to build an escape plan and stock up on knowledge. The blessing of Chesed helps because it is enough for more than 10 large books a day, which is amazing. Now the lady knows all the basic information about the new world, so she will not disappear even if she escapes outside of Ilium. She can't help but be happy, even though she still hasn't made an exact plan. With the help of Force, it will also be possible to earn money. The girl can use her power at any time that suits her to heal people, and sometimes she can get money for living expenses for this. Alternatively, you can become a healer, but then you will have to prohibit the use of force and adapt to herbs and conventional methods. One way or another, it takes work, but the blessing has nuances. They can last no more than 3 hours. Each power can be used only once a day, and so far the girl has only 4 options, which seem to be adaptable to earn money and gain benefits. Chest improves his learning abilities, Monty enhances his powers of observation, and Odysseus seems to enhance his appearance, causing others to literally melt at the sight of him. Seal's blessing has its own benefits that have not yet been discovered. The beauty broke several arms against her will, but has not yet used the techniques on people, so she does not know what will happen. Everything that the saint touches is immediately destroyed, so in some cases protection from offenders is possible. The girl thanks the god of destruction, who smiles back. The man seems to like being praised, but that doesn't mean others aren't jealous. They behave like little children who do not want any of them to be praised, leaving others aside. Anna knocks on the door, immediately announcing the arrival of a guest. This is Kyle, who is waiting for the saint to receive him. Hearing this name, the beauty almost falls from her chair, scared. Turning away, the girl coughs, saying that she is a little sick and that this should be conveyed to the prince. A man's voice says it's more like pretending, or more like a performance. The hero leans his shoulder against the door, examining the girl from his vantage point. They need to decide what to do next, because it is clear that none of them are even going to leave. The future emperor is not going to retreat just like that, so he suggests going for a walk in the garden. It's already completely dark outside, which makes me feel a little uneasy. Originally, the prince was not supposed to spend so much time with the saint nearby. The girl does not understand what the young man is going to talk about in such a quiet place, so far away. The gods are starting a new commotion and discussion about what could happen very soon. In order not to be distracted from the conversation, the lady turns off the connection, realizing that this is just a temporary measure. The guy starts talking himself. Last time he was surprised by the beauty's acting talent, but the pretense that the blonde used in Ilium completely confused him. Kyle doesn't want to beat around the bush anymore. He has no intention of talking about the weather or how the saint behaves, because the most important goal is to warn of danger. Dwayne arrived to talk to Reyhouse almost immediately. He talks about how Ariel protected the prince, and he was blessed by the god of destruction. It seems that love still remains in the girl's heart. She had heard more than once that she shouldn't hang around Alita, but she never learned her lesson. If this is not a test for the young man himself, then the lady is truly special. The servant does not want to distract the priest from his thoughts, which are confused in his head worse than before, but also says that the prince has arrived to visit the woman. They are together, but the guy has not yet said where exactly. Raising his head, the blonde looks with a crazy look, trying to cope with the realization that has come over him. He asks where they are. The man talks about the information he received immediately after the birthday banquet. The Empress's brother, Alberto Michael, collaborates with the temple servants. It looks like that couple is digging under Ariel in order to then overthrow her in disgrace, after which it will be impossible to wash off. The future king has no right to intervene for political reasons. Such an outcome was inevitable. The appearance of the saint calmed the worried hearts of the people. Kyle took advantage of this 2 years ago to successfully strengthen his position. It was a conspiracy between Reyhouse, the prince, and the fake. On top of all this, the young lady supported the future king at the last banquet, so it makes sense that Rose would be trying to sniff out information about who is ruining all her plans, only more than before. The girl understands everything, but does not remember that she read about something like that in a book, because the couple did not meet about this. This means that history has already changed, and it is gaining dangerous momentum. Details have not yet appeared, but it has become known that Alberto is already busy searching for a person for espionage, which will be carried out very soon. The informant whom Michael had previously hired has disappeared somewhere. The man has recently been even more aggressive than usual, so no unnecessary options can be ruled out. The spy disappeared, which can't be anything good. The couple might have learned something important, so they could end everything for a while, but there couldn't be any ideas about what was going on. In any case, there is no choice. The redhead just sighs, asking that, if possible, the lady immediately reports everything that is happening around her without delay. The girl wants to ask for something else. The crown prince of the empire, who mastered the art of the sword as a child, and also the rightful heir to the throne, is the one who will become the conqueror of the empire and the one who will lead the continent. The blonde has already helped the young man once, so since they are partners, she wants to express her conditions. The hero asks skeptically about marriage, but such jokes are out of place. The heroine is not going to ask for too much, because she just needs guaranteed protection, which remains just as important while they are in such a relationship. Even if the couple is now in the same boat, there is no guarantee that things will not end the way they were originally supposed to. The false saint is needed only to stabilize the mood in the country. If someone finds out the truth, there will be no reason to let the girl live. She works hard to support the Empire and his eminence, and for her efforts makes life peaceful as long as they are on the same side. Thoughts are mixed up, so it's not clear who will be the one to raise the sword over Ariel's head, but she still persistently asks for a promise that everything will not end badly. The man, nevertheless, agrees to make a deal. There will be no girl's blood on his sword until she becomes an enemy. He takes an oath in the name of Kyle Alexis Elida, which already means a lot. The beauty calmed down when she heard the oath, which is amazing. They return to the same theme because the proposal letter looked like the girl was ready to commit suicide. It is interesting to know what exactly the lady was thinking when she said that she loved the prince. She said that she wanted to be on his side and was looking forward to it, no matter what. I can't believe that what was written was not true, because everything sounded too convincing. The young lady literally poured her heart out, no matter what problems might arise. The girl tries to repeat again that she was drunk, but she is interrupted by His Highness, who does not believe. From afar, the voice of the high priest is heard, who has been looking for the prince all this time. The young man smiles, but this smile does not bode well at all. I wonder what the saint is doing in such a dark place together with Ilida, and what exactly they are discussing. Getting ready to talk about something that they did not discuss at the holiday, the hero already opens his mouth, but the heroine rushes forward and tries to change the course of events, because she understands that this will not end well. His Highness wanted to talk about food at the banquet. There are too many complaints about the dishes, because the food was stale. The man's facial expression conveys confusion. They have already discussed everything because the prince belongs to the palace, while the saint still belongs to the temple. It is better to avoid personal meetings that only get in the way. The matter concerns Ariel first, and she hastily promises that she will be more careful. She understands that there is no need to provoke Kyle, who could explode at any moment. The young man is not going to agree and nod his head, so he asks since when Reyhouse has the right to control the affairs of the saint. The interlocutor goes too far, going beyond the limits. The blonde smiles, looking through his closed eyelashes. He is always ready to deal with dangerous matters, and His Highness is well aware of this. It's just a play on words. Because of the incident at the banquet, some nobles from the Empress's wing paid undue attention to the saint and the temple. She tried to cover up for an acquaintance, thereby exposing herself to danger. The young man chuckles, but doesn't say anything. In a second, he draws his sword, the tip of which sticks directly into the neck of the hero standing opposite him, who does not say a word. If we are talking about dangerous matters, then such a turn should also be foreseen. A smile appears on your face almost instantly. Principles do not allow us to get away with the actions of arrogant people. Questions regarding Ari and the temple are all that the high priest wanted to know, but he did it completely differently than he should have. He ruined everything that was possible just with his presence. It doesn't matter whether it was a personal meeting or not, because no one is allowed to show excessive arrogance, which will absolutely lead to nothing. The priest understood what they wanted to tell him quite quickly. There are no normal people in Ilium who would help in such a situation. The lady found herself as if among two fires that would very soon flare up, only larger, forming walls of fire. The saint is going to take advantage of Monty's help and leave this place before it is too late. Lightning from nowhere will be very helpful, especially at a time when everything is going awry. Reyhouse calls out to Ariel. If she was that tired, she could always go and rest until she felt better. The words seem like something unexpected, but at the same time, not the worst thing, because the couple stays to talk. Anna, listening to this whole story, is exhausted with interest. She wants to know what happened after that, because meeting the crown prince seems like an exciting event. The lady was tired of the misunderstanding of the relationship that had developed between Reyhouse and Kyle. She should be happy, or so it seemed to the maid. However, everything is completely different. The brunette does not understand when everything changed, because the beauty loved His Majesty so much that she could not restrain herself from her feelings. The entire temple is aware of this, without exception. As you know, what the saint does is that she waits to meet her lover, and even sings about it while walking. Wherever Ariel goes, she always says the same thing, despite those around her who don't like it. Now everything has fallen into place, and the priest's reaction no longer seems absurd. The lady cannot be left alone with Ilida, otherwise it is unclear what might come into her head by pure chance. The girl was completely absorbed in love and even wrote letters. It got to the point where the story spread and became absurd even to others. Reyhouse probably heard a different version of the action. Sighing, the lady turns away. She doesn't know exactly what to do next, but she is sure that she should change her strategy. Otherwise, it won't end well, and she will simply be killed, just like in the original. Asking Anna a question, the girl wonders if she remembers the story about the servant. Once upon a time, the maiden ordered not to say anything, and it was for a reason. You can find a reason for everything. It would be better if things changed a little. The maid is obliged to spread a few new rumors, which in the future will make the situation in the temple and in the empire as a whole a little easier for Ariel herself. The woman wants to be known as a saint from Ilium who wants to live alone. There will be no love or marriage because there is absolutely no point in it. Anna is frightened by this turn of events because in this case the lady will never have a groom. This is not a problem because previous saints married aristocrats and left the temple, but Ari has more important things to do. The girl promises to tell everyone the story of the lonely saint, already knowing that she can do it. They thank her in advance, even noticing exactly the same surprise frozen on her face. Clinging to Reyhouse and chasing after Kyle is the strangest thing imaginable. There were no such stupid people in the original story. The girl doesn't know how to change something so quickly. There is one more small detail left. I would like for life to be as luxurious as usual after leaving the temple, without changing in any way. The lady must implement her ideas faster. In the second life, a virgin has no time for nonsense like love. She won't be like the original because she wants to be happy. Ariel, come to think of it, was never truly 100% happy. Strange voices try to wake up the lady, shouting that there was an explosion, but she manages to sleep. The server will soon shut down, and it will be the main character who will be responsible for this, who by chance herself slept through absolutely everything possible. Getting out of bed, the lady begins to yawn, but at the same time asks Anna to take the children out. A second later, the realization of the situation comes, because children who do not visit Ilium except for holidays when their parents arrive could not get into the room. Two kids with blonde hair are trying to say something, but the heroine cannot concentrate because she is looking at them with wide eyes. The gods are furious and throw lightning in different directions. New acquaintances ask the saint to try to calm the others down before the server crashes. There is no more time left for sleep, so the only option is to try to fix everything as quickly as possible. Before starting explanations, the blondes are asked to sign. After this, you can begin the story, which should take as little time as possible for safety reasons. The boys handed over a blank sheet of paper with the girl's signature already on it. They think it's one of the ugliest signatures in the world, and everyone is going to find a good frame anyway. With the help of the frame, it will be possible to distinguish which is whose. Still, interrupting the kids from the discussion, the heroine asks who they are and what she is doing there. There are too many questions that will be quite difficult to answer, given that time is limited. Even with gaining divine power, time in spiritual form is very limited, and this is the first thing to remember from everything the saint is going to tell. They are beings that separated from the primordial god. In their world, such a place is called a system, in which there are two managers. The first is called Ren, and the other is called Peng. It was the managers who brought the lost soul of the girl into this scheme to clarify the circumstances and what should be done in the future. In this way, they seem to help. Grabbing her head with her hand to calm herself down at least a little, the lady asks again about what's going on. She still didn't understand what the problem was and why she was brought to this strange place. Usually Ren and Peng don't do this, but this time the situation is completely different, so there was simply no other choice. All because the gods show too much interest, which seems a little unhealthy. Since these are the main ones, then the Virgin has a lot of questions about what's going on. For some reason, the prophecy appeared suddenly, and so much so that without any warning, it was as if she had become a guinea pig. Well, these two, and Ariel herself, have difficulties, because dealing with a new world that does not coincide with the original is quite difficult. Even if the gods are willing to help, it is still something else. Pan shuts Ren up before he says anything else that shouldn't be paid too much attention to. He only pays attention to appearance, so you shouldn't pay attention to that. The reason is still not given because the problem has not been solved. Virgo freezes because lightning strikes right a meter away from her, which scatters sparks in different directions, causing her to jump on the spot. This is exactly what Ren was talking about, but now it is clear that the gods are really angry. They are attacking the system, and judging by the attacks, these are the tricks of Hesed, who again most likely did not like something. You need to be able to negotiate with him. All the lady did before going to bed was meeting with friends, talking with Anna, and turning off the broadcast. The heroine quickly realizes that she did something wrong, even if Pan says that she has every right to do so. The gods could no longer watch what was happening, but they could not do anything because they were closed. In such cases, they lose interest, but this time they decided to finally organize a pogrom that would lead Ariel straight to them. This time, the anger fell on Ren and Pan, who could not help. Everyone is looking forward to the continuation, so they can't even restrain themselves along with their impulses that are rushing out. The main ones ask that Ariel continue to do what she was doing before, because otherwise everything could get much worse, which of course is undesirable, given everything that is happening. Turning away, the blonde thinks about something, and then asks what will happen if she suddenly gives up on this, and as a result, everything will change. Ren jumps in surprise, opening his mouth. In truth, the lady promises to think, but only if all the questions posed to her are answered. All this is said with an innocent smile that spreads across the face, as if nothing was even happening. The blonde frowns. He does not believe how a person with such a soul could receive divine power and entry into the system. This is a huge blessing, but for some reason, Ari still dares to tell others what exactly they should do. The smile still shines, but only brighter. This decision will be for the saint, and she will decide whether this is a blessing. Something else can also pop up at the very last minute. I don't want to think that the guys had anything against them that day, so the heroine is glad that everything ended in the best possible way. The morning passes slowly at its usual pace, even if the beauty is already tired. Turning to the screen, which has been waiting all this time to be turned on, the maiden decides that the time has come. She presses the button and connects the broadcast, which is already starting. Monty immediately tries to assemble the torn portrait of Lesha, while the god of destruction sulks and complains about the heroine's carelessness. Odysseus lost his shoes while running to greet the beauty, and she says that she was terribly bored trying to avoid punishment. Naturally, Chesed was the one who threw the lightning bolts that time, and again prepares several to remind of his existence. The girl asks for permission to do this, but she is rudely refused. Turning away, the saint tries to explain that she passed out for a reason, and that she also has the right to privacy. The god of love does not know what this means, so he is interested. This means that Ariel is completely embarrassed. Chest was the first to understand everything. He agrees that this happens, because the same thing happened to them at about the same age. Virgo cannot be happy that everything was resolved quite quickly, and even without a skirmish. Continuing the dialogue, the beauty promises to try to maintain contact almost constantly, but will still turn off the prophecy when she needs it. One example is going to the bathroom. It's not a matter of who is looking at what. The prophecy will still be active almost always, so there is no point in getting angry because nothing will happen due to short breaks. All warnings apply especially to the god of knowledge. If he overdoes it with thunder and lightning, the saint will completely abandon the prophecy that was given to her very recently. They nod their heads in agreement. It doesn't matter how omnipotent the gods are. Ariel is the one who dominates this relationship, so everything that happens should be beneficial to both parties, regardless of how it turns out in the future. If only they could understand what exactly the girl is trying to achieve, everything would become much simpler. But this is impossible. The girl remembers that she has prepared something important and immediately sees the interest of the god of love. In any relationship, balance is important, and it is best not to upset it. The heroine holds out the bracelet she made to show her respect for everyone she knows. She's not good at crafts, so it didn't turn out very nice. The blonde gave gifts from the bottom of her heart because she wanted to thank her for the attitude and help she received. She tries to make amends in every possible way she can find. For a minute, there is silence in the room, which is not broken. The lady took this as a bad sign that the gods did not like the work, so they are trying to find words with which they can delicately refuse. After a moment, the bracelets absorb the bright light, and they evaporate. The god of love put on the little thing and began to shine, while the god of knowledge cries because he was very touched. Seal thanks, as does Monty, who considers it a priceless gift. They argue again, but this time simply over what and who will get it. The girl was able to do the impossible and calm them down, at least for a while, until she made another mistake, which she would have to make up for later. Ren and Pan should be happy with what they get, but so far there is no visible progression in what exactly they are doing because they refuse to answer the question posed. It's too difficult to find words. The couple turned the beauty into Ariel, and there must be a logical reason for this. Blondes try to justify themselves by saying that they are just observers who do not have the strength to change anything. Just like that. Already losing hope, the girl lowers her head. There is one last question that still worries her, and that is whether she will remain in the Return of Saint Camilla, which will only happen at the end of the book. The girl read the volume before entering the new world. It all starts with the Temple of Allium and the Empire of Illida. The saint is the main character, and 3 male characters are associated with her and try to protect her. The fake Saint Ariel wants to take Camille's place, so she tries her best to pull it off. She gets used to her place, but eventually dies from 3 swords that pierce her after raising the blade. The book did not mention demons, which the heroine did not want to know about. Basically, there was romance, which was replaced with a main character who literally collected a harem of the best people in history. Ren and Pan move a little further away, starting to whisper to each other. If this is the story, then anything can come true. This all seems like a coincidence that does not change in any way, so the interest only grows stronger. What Ariel read was most likely a prophecy that led to events in reality. If there were no evil forces there, then this is just a small part of the overall picture. An ordinary romance has become something more important. The Virgin couldn't just get into the story, but in her world, there was a prophecy about the new and unknown. After death, the lady ended up in the body of the villainess, thereby as if prescribing her own fate. In this case, the heroine is afraid to ask what will happen to her next. She can easily die like in the original, but she is not real. This is simply a soul from another world that has entered the body. Fate can be changed. The book was endowed with special power. Someone's hopes were invested there, which cannot simply fade away without showing themselves. If this happens, then the end will happen, which is inevitable. Ren can't say more, because what's more important is that the prophecy was distorted, and the girl replaced the villain. Pan asks his friend not to reveal the whole secret, otherwise the future could change greatly. This concludes the session. The lady wanted to ask something else, but she was interrupted. It's time to return back to the world of reality, where those two simply do not exist. That day again, there were many transactions that were most likely successful. Dwayne continues to be surprised how the beauty so clearly notices something that can be sold for 3 times more than she will pay at auction. Turning to her companion, the lady reminds that it is not just a matter of luck. It took a lot more than that to get all the important stuff for a sale that turns out successful. Even all the money from the temple is not enough for a full escape, which must be accomplished very soon before it is too late. It was lucky that Monty helped a lot, thereby increasing the saint's fortune. The auction that day went quite well and was profitable. Many say that the thing that the heroine is holding is the collection of Count Rosen's grandfather. The garnet necklace, a sculpture of the god Monty, and a portrait of the saint at the age of 54. They managed to get a lead candlestick and even a necklace in just an hour. If the expectations are met, then it's a jackpot because the stuff is truly amazing. The beauty hopes that the pendant will cost the most from the entire list. Entering the guild, the lady hears an argument with one of the buyers. The lady offers an expensive necklace in exchange for chromium. She heard that it is in the guild's reserves, but for some reason they do not sell it to her, not under any existing pretext. The substance is illegal, which is why Lloyd does not conduct such transactions for the sake of its reputation. Squeezing the necklace even tighter, the lady assures that she will meet with the owner if she is not provided with an exchange service. The girl immediately points out that the platinum chain will cost about 1,000 francs. The seller says that the owner is a little busy at the moment, but if you want to meet, it's worth making an appointment in advance, without any objections. Dwayne says Cronius is related to opium. It is sometimes used as a pain reliever, but is most often sold as a controlled substance. This plant can only be grown within the walls of the temple. It disrupts the pulse, and in large quantities easily causes death. The woman, starting to scream in a fit of indignation, turns around and runs forward to the door. She no longer wants to continue the useless dialogue and looks very angry. Only upon leaving did the saint notice that this face was familiar to her. The person who came for opium turned out to be the Empress's maid, whom the heroine already knows because of the reception in the royal palace. The woman promised that God would not leave alone the guild, which did not do what the buyers asked of it, and then disappeared. All three were left standing in bewilderment in the middle of the hall, which seemed deserted. A man's voice is heard somewhere from the next room. He thanks the seller for resolving everything so quickly. He did not know that there was another guest who had arrived just recently, and the lady was cursing herself for her luck. The heroine once again stumbled upon Cass, who calmly asks what brought the noble saint straight to him. Usually not very honest people who want to sell something end up here. The girl bows her head, blessing the merchant. She arrived at the guild to sell something and quickly took the money and went into the distance. This seems to be true, but the guy still checks with the seller. The lady has been selling before because some things are no longer needed at all, but may be useful to someone else. She always uses the logic of a righteous person. Taking the necklace from the hands of the seller, which shines beautifully in the sun, the man chuckles. He suspected something. Such a thing could not have once been owned by a saint who did not possess such important jewelry. The lady cannot say that she started buying things at auction and selling them at a premium, so she lied without even thinking about it. Lloyd is like a thorn, which means you should get rid of him quickly before it's too late. Examining the thing once again, the hero offers to buy it right on the same day, offering about 10,000 francs for it, which is already an unbearable amount on which one can easily live. The beauty has no thoughts about what is happening, because she does not understand the value of the various things that are provided to her. She knows it's just a necklace, so she sees through the hidden deception. The man behind the counter turns to the marquis with indignation. It seems to him that the head has bent a little, because the red price of the necklace is 700 francs, but not 10,000, and this time you can even believe something like that. With 10,000, a commoner's family can live for 10 years, and it is also the equivalent of the yearly salary a girl receives in Ilium. It's strange that Lloyd is willing to pay so much for an ordinary trinket. Dwayne asks the saint to agree, because this proposal sounds great, but she shakes her head, as if wondering what to do next. She is not going to sell the pendant even for such crazy money. Taking the trinket back, the lady asks to evaluate only 3 things that she put on the table. The rest doesn't matter as long as they are in this guild, because nothing will work out as it should. The mistress is not sure, because even the subordinate considers this a lucrative offer, but for now she stands her ground, without changing at all in what she says. Dwayne has long bought into the benefits that are offered to him, but the saint still tries to think pragmatically so as not to fall into some stupid trap. The high price is incredibly attractive, but you don't want to mess with a sly fox who is definitely up to something. The young man hands the thing back, saying that he wanted to get closer thanks to a successful deal. The girl has a diamond in her eye, because she managed to get a necklace that previously belonged to the imperial family. Even Ariel herself, who did not suspect it, did not expect such a turn of events. The thing is a valuable gift that the former empress gave to the current empress. Cass does not understand how such an important pendant fell into the hands of a saint from the Temple of Ilium, who has nothing to do with this at all. The brunette strongly recommends that you do not under any circumstances open a box of stones in a frame and do not sell them to anyone. Not a single soul should know what is in the temple premises. As a last resort, you should get rid of something like this so that no one dares to find it, and through it reach Ariel, who will remain an easy target for whoever needs it in the first place. The girl jumps to the side, thanking her for the advice, which is priceless, which means it will definitely help in the future. Cass would like to know more, but will have to try his luck next time. The girl has a persistent desire to finish off Monty, who slipped the stolen necklace. He claims that it doesn't matter whether it's stolen or not, because it's still a work of art. This matters, because a lady will either be executed or imprisoned for stealing an item. The young man slipped something that was dangerous to sell, and moreover, a statue that had no value for sale, even for 100 francs. No longer listening to Monty's arguments, Ariel only sighs resignedly. She spent about 900 francs on 4 things, and in the end, due to the inability to sell 2 of them, she earned only 300 francs, which already meant losses. If only Lloyd had not interfered, the lady would have sold even the 2 things that needed to be in the hands of the guild. He turned out to be strange, since he was ready to pay 10,000 just to get to know a person better. Cass is not the kind of person who would engage in unprofitable business or make unprofitable deals, so I want to know his motive even more. In the original novel, the man told Camilla that he would never make a loss because money rules the world. In the end, only a new acquaintance offered the best price. The girl already regrets that she didn't agree because it would be nice to change everything. In the future, you need to be more careful with things like the necklace. There are 1,300 francs on the balance sheet, and there are too many worries about the future in my soul. With the money you have, you won't even be able to buy a barn, much less a store, and you can't even dream of escaping from the temple until you have enough funds. The girl is sure that she should have agreed when she was offered something so profitable. She can't move out to go back to the store and still accept Lloyd's offer for the pendant. The lady thinks about how exactly she could say hello before heading back into the store. At the other end of the room, Reyhouse appears and in his cold tone greets the saint, who has already returned. The girl does not understand how exactly the high priest ended up in the room, who did not even warn that he was going to come soon. She tries not to panic so as not to show her true feelings. His Eminence greets, but then immediately starts talking about the interesting things that the girl has been doing lately, who is trying with all her might to hide it from everyone else. The young man wants to know why the lady suddenly started saving money. Understanding sparkles in his eyes as he asks if she plans to escape from the temple anytime soon. Such details should not have come out. As is already known, in the original story, there are only 3 main characters who are very similar to each other, but at the same time completely different. The first is a master of the sword and a man with an icy heart that cannot be melted. The crown prince devoted himself entirely to protecting Camilla, who arrived at the temple 5 years later than Saint Ariel herself. The next character is the owner of the merchant guild. This man is the smartest in the Illid Empire. He achieved success without using his high status as a marquis, although it could have helped significantly. Despite his prudence, the young man fell in love with Camilla and was ready to give her the entire empire without demanding anything in return. He is the heir of the Lloyd couple, and his name is Cass Lloyd. The last one is a man with a dark heart who knows no mercy, the high priest. He has a strong sense of justice. He met Camilla very first and began to pray with all his heart for her well-being. Reyhouse defended the new saint until things were a little better than before. These men had only 2 things in common. Firstly, this is a devoted love for a girl with beautiful hair, and secondly, hatred for Ariel, who remains a fake. Like all novels, there is no main male character who is interested in a villain who doesn't even deserve it. The lady was left alone, without anything, realizing that there was nothing for her. The last thread to salvation was the purchase of a house, but even that was almost cut off, because everything became known to the high priest, who now, most likely, will do everything necessary to stop the existence of this idea. The girl is frightened by the momentum the plot is gaining, which seemed to be completely innocent. For some reason, in the original, everything was not as confusing as it initially seemed, so the heroine even regrets that this happens to her in reality. Trying to confuse the young man, the heroine actively waves her arms in protest. The saint does not have the right to leave her place of residence, so conversations on this topic are literally meaningless. The only thought that popped into my head was to buy a small villa near Ilium. It sounds unconvincing, but the lady continues to hope that this lie will save her, even if in the end, most likely, nothing will work out. The blonde says that she is, of course, comfortable in the temple, since this is the main home that she has. Sometimes she wants to be alone with her thoughts, and she hopes that she is understood without unnecessary words. The young man still nods, starting to smile. He agrees that sometimes you want to spend time just the 2 of you. A smile blooms on her face as the lady realizes what exactly is happening. At first, the words seemed completely normal, but then they took their turn. Freezing, the lady jumps up, asking if Reyhouse meant that he wanted to be alone without unnecessary ears and eyes. The face shows horror, which one no longer even has the strength to hide from strangers. The man understood what exactly the saint wanted, and would try not to interfere too much, simply by always being there. You should be careful when going outside, so Dwayne will be given a few more people to guard him. Walking around Ari, the friend places a hand on her shoulder, asking why she is trying so hard to protest. An important person needs to be properly guarded by several people at once. Looking into Ariel's eyes, the hero asks her to be a little more careful, so as not to regret what happens later. He seems to say everything in all seriousness, and expects people to sympathize with him. Smiling, the hero offers to rest, because it seems that the girl just recently arrived back at the temple. After a faithful farewell, the blonde evaporates, closing the door behind him and leaving the saint completely alone. The thoughts in my head are only more confused than before, because the beauty does not understand how Elle could be such a person if in the book he was very different. He acted differently and tried to remain tactful. Most likely, Odysseus was the one who was up to something. He simply trampled on his dream of escaping and living the rest of his days carefree in some remote house with his own store, which, of course, infuriates him. The god of love says he has nothing to do with it. Chest advises choosing a gift and taking it as receiving a share of Casloyd's business, which is not even offered anything yet. The girl tries to calm them down, asking them not to say anything. The blonde does not understand why there was another discussion of the main characters, who rightfully belong to a real saint. None of them would ever treat Ari the same way they treat Camille, because that makes no sense. In addition to all this, the lady did not plan to take the place of the main character, who was soon to arrive. Although from the point of view of the reader, all three are very attractive young people, but having become a villain, the lady must think only about how to survive. The heroine has already read the story more than once, so she is afraid of what might happen to her very soon, not even through her fault. She doesn't want to feel the three swords pierce right through her flesh, causing her to scream in pain. The gods are already dreaming of gifts from these people, who have nothing to do with it. Odysseus strongly recommends not to miss out on such an enviable groom as Kyle, because of the candidates he liked him the most. Anna arrived with Ariel for the holiday, which literally the entire empire had already talked about. There are many lights around that are lit for people, because it has long been dark. The girl points somewhere ahead, trying to calm down, because the impressions are taking their toll. The woman suggests going to where there are the most lights, smiling lightly. She looks as happy as she hasn't been seen in a very long time. Once at the night market, the girl seemed to blossom after the work that was killing her. The saint did the right thing by deciding to escape from Ilium, at least for one night, because dispelling the thoughts that were bothering her was a good idea. The maid points to a stand with glass candies that shimmer beautifully in the sun. The food actually looks like glass, because the friends are watching their reflection in one of the candies. The transparency is amazing, so the beauty asks about the price of one bag of goodies. The price for one serving is 1 franc, so without hesitation, the heroine bought 2, which she takes from the counter. Turning back to Anna, she hands one of them, saying that now you can enjoy the general atmosphere. Trying one candy, the lady closes her eyes with pleasure. The taste cannot be forgotten, because it is wonderful. The maid almost cries from the impressions, because they take care of her, despite the fact that she is an ordinary maid. The blonde is just happy. She doesn't think about anything at all. She's just having fun, enjoying the holiday to the fullest, without thinking about how to save her skin from death and the 3 blades that will pierce it. Anna is also in a good mood, but asks if she could buy candy. There seems to be uncertainty and even slight fear in the voice, which is difficult to hide. If the high priest finds out that they sneaked out of the temple, he will be very angry with both of them. The saint reassures her friend, saying that everything is fine. The man is busy with his guests and is unlikely to notice the absence of those who usually sit in their room. In addition, Ariel played it safe, so she lent her clothes to the maid. Now, no one will definitely think that standing in front of them is a saint who simply forgot what she should look like. Although these are simple clothes, the girl looks incredibly beautiful in them, which makes her feel incredibly pleased. Hearing compliments from the people you love is the most important thing. Turning back, the lady accidentally notices 2 men who are trying to get lost in the crowd. They started following their friends from the very beginning of the festival, which is already starting to get a little scary. The girl quickly comes up with a strategy and actions that she should take to ward off men. Anna is scared because no one knows how they will behave. Strangers can attack at any time without warning. Ariel asks not to worry. She understands that the experiences will not completely go away, but in such a case she has something, and we are talking about the power that hides inside the body. It's time to try Seal's blessing. The couple got to the Rose Blossom Festival from Ilium. This is a guaranteed event where any resident of the empire has the right to enjoy the beautiful blooming of roses for a whole week. To attract even more attention from the public, and especially young people, the organizers decided to start a legend that if you get married that week of the holiday, the couple will be happy all their lives. Because of the legend, many guys approached the girls at the festival with marriage proposals, but 2 of them, apparently, were unable to accept the refusal, so they continued to pursue their friends further. Entering the alley that was the closest, the heroines stop. A hoarse male voice is heard right behind them, admiring that they managed to turn into such a dark corner. The lovely young ladies got lost, or came up with a unique way to agree to the proposal. The maid backs away as Ariel smiles. Everything went as she originally planned. Coming forward, the brunette tries to be indignant, saying that a high-ranking person is standing in front of them. The 2 start laughing, assuming she is the Baron's daughter. There is no point in pushing with status, because the saint is dressed like a commoner. The only way is to do what was intended. Asking her friend to step aside, the lady heads forward. One of the guys whistles, suggesting that the girl has decided to agree to what was discussed a little earlier. Smiling, the brunette says that such an obedient girl will be an excellent wife. Without listening to anything, the heroine remembers one important thing that the god of destruction Ciel once told her. Those who do not understand the words only need to be punched in the face once, and then they will immediately understand everything. This is exactly what the beauty had in mind when she started talking about this. A stream of light force bursts forward, which throws one of the guys aside in a wave. The other one screams in surprise, not understanding how something like this could even happen. The brunette grabs his collar, trying to force his friend to stand up, but he doesn't react at all, as if everything has lost any meaning in things that are no longer so important. Anna blinks her eyes in surprise and then asks how this happened. The saint threw the man away like a feather while making absolutely no effort to change everything. Everything happened thanks to the blessing of the gods. Before raising her hand, the beauty asked Ciel to give her power. She is glad that she upgraded her power control in advance, which now does not just break out. The man decided to launch an attack while expressing dissatisfaction with the situation that occurred. He doesn't understand how the girl dared to behave like that because his friend still can't wake up. The young man is thrown aside while a man's voice is heard in the distance. The hero came to the festival to enjoy what was happening, but in the end, he had to get rid of the garbage that was bothering the girls. One of the friends tries to get up to ask who it is, but he is put back down again. Cass is not going to listen to the arguments of someone he doesn't care about at all. Grabbing the second one, the hero runs away into the distance, shouting something offensive. He didn't like what was happening, so he promises that revenge will be terrible from the very beginning as soon as they come back. Lloyd asks the maid if everything is okay when she nods her head. He did not expect the manifestation of strength from the saint, and she is only trying to justify herself. She only slightly pushed the man, so she doesn't know how he lost consciousness. Trying to change the subject, the beauty cannot help but notice the wonderful skills of the Marquis. He easily raised the dagger and struck the offender without regretting anything. Grunting, the young man assures that he poked at random, so he doesn't know how it happened, blaming it all on the luck that turned up for him. The man seems to be mimicking the girl, who is starting to get angry. Not wanting to talk about anything like that anymore, the hero asks how the couple ended up in a dark alley, because it doesn't seem the safest to wander the streets alone. Extending his hand, the brunette proposes to be the one to escort the girls back to the main square. He doesn't remember the incident at the guild when the lady tried to sell the Empress's necklace. Not wanting to refuse, the lady walks forward right behind the Marquis. I would like to understand why everything constantly goes wrong, but no one gives an answer to the question posed. The maid ran away almost immediately. The Virgin remembered that she had some important things to do and asked not to worry about her, enjoying the date properly. The young man, on the contrary, thought that not everything was so terrible because he did not expect the maid to be so smart. This irritates the saint because she has completely different thoughts about this in her head. Trying to get rid of her companion, the girl asks if he has work that he has not finished. Such a busy man cannot just walk the streets, but he assures that he has already finished all the work. Children running nearby almost knock Ariel off her feet. She ends up in the hands of a man who is surprised that parents do not monitor the behavior of their children, allowing them to roam the streets without rules. These children are orphans, and in order to feed themselves, they have to steal food or pick other people's pockets. With luck, in the future they will be messengers or grooms for aristocrats, but these children seem to have already chosen their path in advance. The saint with a sad look sees off the tomboys who run away into the distance. They look like they are only 6 or 7 years old, so it is strange to hear such things about their future fate. The girl probably did not know about this dark side of society. Everything is completely different from the case in the temple, because in any segment of the population, there are good and bad people who do not change. Many poor people, faced with difficulties, lose faith in the gods. These people do not understand why aristocrats live happily, while they have to suffer all their lives, unable to change their social status. The young man himself does not believe in the power of the gods, even if this should not be something true, because they exist. The lady does not understand why the marquis decided to tell her all about this, while choosing such an incomprehensible moment. The world may not be ideal, but the virgin still believes that the gods are trying for the benefit of everyone else, because they are trying to fully provide for those who believe in them. It is much easier to try to blame the gods for your troubles than to try to change something with the help of this power. Since the beauty is closest to the gods, since she is a saint and has access to prophecy, she is going to contribute to the improvement of the new world, which so far represents nothing. The young man freezes with surprised eyes, but then still nods, extending his hand to the saint. As he said earlier, I want to get to know the girl better in order to understand what is going on in her soul. Every time Cass sees the blonde in front of him, his heart starts pounding like crazy. He can't hold back because his interest is creeping out more and more. Ari's palm rests on her chest near her heart. The icy hands are exactly the same as the temper, but the heart really beats like crazy. And for the girl, this remains a big mystery that cannot be solved so quickly. Sharply withdrawing her hand, the girl reproaches herself for thinking about such things at moments when it is not worth it. Clearing her throat, the beauty says that they were a little late, although this was not worth doing for safety reasons. The young man only says that next to the charming person he forgot about everything in the world, although he tried very hard not to do this. Exhaling, the lady remembers that the man probably poured similar things into the ears of more than one lady. The smile is warm, as for such a person, when he asks whether he really looks so much like a womanizer. This makes it awkward, because the beauty did not mean this at all, and now wants to ask for forgiveness. Her face is covered in scarlet paint, so the blonde decides to run away. She still has a lot to do, so she asks you to forgive her for the urgency, and instantly runs away into the distance, trying to make sure that they don't follow her. Trying to catch her breath, the heroine tries to understand why she acted like she was crazy. Anna took and left the saint to the mercy of fate, also making her contribution. She promises to remember everything that happened very soon. The first day of the festival has arrived, which is considered one of the most important for everyone, including the temple and the palace. On this day, the lady will appear before the people again as a real saint. Coming out onto the platform, the lady meets the rest of those present who are waiting for the saint. People, as soon as they notice the beautiful clothes, begin to shout and clap, praising the 9 gods. In the place where Ariel stands, there should have been a real saint, Camilla, who by chance never appeared. The 3 main male characters from the poem gathered around. Chest blesses those who are eager to learn something new, and the rest repeat, blessing the virgin in their own way. It's unlikely that the gods are worried. The girl begins to think that she is in the right place. Raising her head a little higher to do everything according to the instructions, the heroine absorbs the rays of the sun. She recalls a recent conversation with Lloyd, who said that he does not believe in omnipotent gods. Perhaps the rulers of the world cannot do everything according to the wishes of every person and are not omnipotent, but they will definitely try to help people if it is in their power as long as they continue to believe. What blessing and from what God each person will receive depends on themselves, because it is all in their hands. Nobody has the right to change anything because it doesn't work that way. It's a pity that the girl is still a fake and can't help people using holy power that needs to be hidden, especially from Reyhouse, who will have a million questions that he will immediately ask. Anna worries about her friend the most. Even if the saint feels quite well, she should go back and rest before she becomes even more tired. The blonde smiles her sweet smile, asking you not to worry about anything. It's better to breathe fresh air because the bed is only for relaxation. Asking for one favor, the beauty waits for tea, which the maid promises to prepare. The gaze is drawn to the beautiful white roses that grow nearby like a hedge. The girl goes forward to touch the flowers. She wonders out loud why they planted such a huge number of roses, but no one answers her, which is logical. A man's voice is heard behind him calling Ariel by name. Virgo asks the high priest if he has finished his work, and he nods his head in agreement. Everything came out much faster than it should have, because the process usually takes longer. Tearing off one rose, the blonde says that white lotunia goes well with the saint, and asks to accept one of them as a gift. He continues to smile. The lady is grateful for the gift, but it is a little sad that the flower had to be picked and the life of the flower shortened. The heroine understands that she would like to admire the flowers simply in the garden. The young man nods his head, but then seems to be trying to say something. The more he gets to know the girl, the more he is sure that something has changed, because on the first day of the meeting, everything was different. The girl has changed a lot, as if she has even become a completely different person, who now looks completely different and behaves strangely. It was said that by picking the Lotunia, the young man shortened the life of the flower, but unfortunately, he does not know any other way to safely give the bouquet. Still, something like this is not worth depriving the plant of its life. It will quickly wither and lose the aroma that used to spread throughout the garden. If a flower can make another person smile, even if only for a short time, then it is still worth dying for. Reyhouse returns to memories that visited him quite recently. Ariel said that she wanted to see the white Lotunia with her own eyes. After that conversation, the man planted flowers in the backyard, making a whole garden out of it, which the monks could then admire for almost a year. The hero even foresaw how to make sure that the flowers did not fade either in winter or autumn, so that they would always be at the disposal of the saint. I can't believe that the blonde planted all the flowers just for the sake of a friend. While the lady is in the temple, the priest will ask no one to pluck the Lotunia. If the heroine ever decides to leave the temple, every morning he will pick a whole bouquet and bring it to the door of the new house. Smiling a wry smile, the lady assures that there is no need for this, because she would never leave the temple, which has become a new abode for her. The girl tries to remain calm, but it seems to her that there is a threat here. He hints that if anything happens, she will also say goodbye to her life. The conversation turned to rumors that had spread recently. A lady has appeared in Tiago's area who has divine powers that help heal people. The lady is well aware that she is a fake saint, so she planned to leave even before Camilla showed up. She needed to pull off the trick quickly. As you know, the beauty was supposed to appear 5 years later, but now she actually appeared much earlier than in the original story. Finishing the meal, the heroine asks Anna to clear the table. She didn't even really eat and surprised the maid, but she just shrugged it off. The lady has absolutely no appetite. If her memory serves her, then Camilla's awakening of holy power happened much later than now. Everything went towards receiving that very relic from Reed, the god of eternity. He made the lady discover hidden powers in herself that were unknown to her until that moment. If the saint had truly obtained her power, Antonio's pendant would have disappeared from his shopping list. It is simply blocked, but is still in the virtual store. In addition, the saint's hometown is Ares, and Tiago, where a new benefactress has appeared, is located on the opposite end of the continent. The blonde cannot understand what is happening, but wants to find out who the same girl is who has shown the sacred power associated with the reappearance. The gods do not answer the question about that woman. When there is no need, they chatter incessantly, but as soon as a question appears, no one is even going to open their mouth. Even if the awakened saint is not Camilla, then it is still worth freeing up space in the temple and leaving Ilium as early as possible. For some reason, after the news, Reyhouse behaved more than strangely, even if it was unusual for him. The lady expected to hear something completely different. Even if the real owner of Ariel's power appears, no one will dare to drive her out, even if the emperor himself wants it, since the temple does not obey him. The hero said this, although the real Ari heard from him that she would have to leave the walls of the temple immediately when a replacement was found for her. Nothing fits anymore. Lady is afraid that Elle suspects something more terrible than just what she says. He is going to lock the girl in a dungeon and torture her. The gods begin to actively discuss what the heroine said. For some reason, each of them decided to behave properly, even if before everyone had been unanimously silent. Virgo asks to stop mocking her because she will not tolerate this. Asking for the noise to stop, she heads to the bedroom to fall asleep. All day long, the gods had to send blessings to the people because no one was to be left behind, but now it was time for sleep. The girl hears the sound of the doors. Fear takes its toll, especially since she is on the 4th floor. No one can get up there just like that without a ladder. The doors open slowly, and the lady does not know what to do to hide from the man who is about to plot. The voice is indignant that he had to wait too long. It turned out to be Kyle, who came to kidnap the saint in order to save her. Looking at the man, the beauty asks why he came. His Highness is in no hurry to reveal all the cards, looking around. Last time, Ariel took her word so that the future king would not kill her, but now she is scared because she cannot believe what is happening. The young man asks him to relax, because he just came to arrange a kidnapping. This option will be the calmest for both of them. Trying to find reasons to stay, the heroine asks about the guards. The answer is not long in coming, because, logically, the hero can easily kill all the guards. The lady does not understand why the hero decided to say so directly that he would arrange a kidnapping, but they do not give her time to finish the sentence, because they grab her in her arms. If the saint does not shut up, she will be forced to remain silent in another way. Standing on the windowsill, the man asks to hold on tight, because they are about to jump down. The fourth floor seems like a terrible place to jump from a window, but Alita somehow makes it land at a smooth pace without any injuries. Smiling, the prince asks how long the lady plans to snuggle closer to him. He noticed that his face was redder than before and was even surprised. Examining her body, the blonde gasps. There was not a trace left on her that they had fallen from such a height. This is nonsense for a swordmaster who can handle anything. The lady does not move forward because everything needs to be thought out. She worries about the consequences that may occur as soon as someone finds out about what happened related to the prince. If someone dares to present something, then he will face death, which will be stretched out to the maximum. This man still looks more like a psycho who has been released from a cage. The young man chuckles, because this is actually the first time he has managed to kidnap a living person. He asks to be treated with respect and understanding, and to stop getting on your nerves. The lady asks where they are going, because 10 minutes have passed, and nothing but trees are visible. The situation is dangerous, because there is no way to go back, since the way back has been forgotten. The man asks where the fears came from. He is not going to kill the beauty in this dark and deserted forest, even if he wants to. Waving his hand, the hero advises to relax, because if he wanted to, he would have made everything a reality long ago. Besides, they have already arrived at the place. The lady looks around, gasping in surprise. The huge garden with roses is mesmerizing. There was no way to even guess that something like this existed. When there are too many annoying thoughts in his head, the young man comes to the place and admires the view that the roses provide him. Kyle heard that a real saint had recently appeared. The fact that the lady is silent says a lot, so it turned out that it was true after all. Perhaps the gods felt that the body could not withstand the full power of the holy power, and decided to awaken the real power that would be in the saint from Tiago, which was not known. The lady will soon be kicked out of the temple in any case, so the young man would like to offer a new position in the imperial palace, which will go to the heroine. For several days in the imperial palace, the day began with another commotion. The Duke of Rockford's son, Shane Rockford, when he found out about everything, burst in, asking how much longer he could do nothing. The prince didn't even understand at first, but everything was explained to him. He heard that the empress was pregnant, so he should think about the heir that Kyle's wife should give birth to. If the empress gives birth to a son, then all plans will be disrupted. Shane is too skeptical about what is happening, even if he understands that he cannot influence it in any way. The redhead just shrugs it off. He doesn't see any problem, because he'll just have a brother, whom he's already waiting for. It doesn't matter that Rose will be the mother. Rockford still disagrees. It's time to think about the heir, but for some reason, the young man rejected the feelings of his daughter Hemison, and even more so the feelings of the saint from Ilium. The hero remembers those moments that happened earlier, and therefore smiles, thinking that the rumors do not lie and the future emperor likes men. He is probably secretly in love with the young man. Anger begins to creep out because there is no strength to endure Shane anymore. Even if the prince was into boys, he would not be so blind as to fall in love with his subordinate. I remember events that happened just a few months ago. The hero did not suspect that something would happen, but the fake saint sent a letter with disgusting content. In her letters, the beauty wrote only about how she dreams of a prince almost every night, and also about how she wishes for love and is looking forward to the moment when she is loved and proposed to. The man wanted to kill the girl because she turned up her nose too much, like an ordinary fake that was worth nothing. He hoped that at the banquet, the lady would start pestering him so that he would have a reason to do what he had planned. Things didn't go according to plan. When Kyle saw the lady at that banquet after receiving that letter, she acted completely differently, as if she had suddenly become a completely different person. There was confidence in her eyes, and her movements and manner were graceful and dignified. Ariel said the right things, and not as usual, thereby bringing back the feeling that she was a real saint. The hero was even more surprised at the young lady's intelligence because she quickly adapted to the situation, calling out the name of the god Ciel. Various thoughts come into my head, because the girl could be pretending to be stupid in order to test the waters, or the wrong impression was formed about her. Perhaps the beauty did everything to lull the vigilance of those around her, at least for a while. There were too many questions. When Elita saw his companion's eyes, it seemed to him that she was a rather pretty person. Hitting himself in the face, the hero tries not to think about the fake, which is not worthy of attention. Shane interrupted the Emperor's thoughts because he announced a newly arrived letter from the Temple of Ilium, where the saint lives. Now the man is standing in the garden with roses, discussing the future of the beauty, who still does not understand what position we are talking about. After leaving the church, you need somewhere to go. The blonde turns away. She tries her best to believe, but she can't, because usually the prince doesn't bother if someone wanders without a home. The girl already has a clear plan that she uses to achieve her goals. There is no point in worrying. Virgo wanted stability, so she agreed to the position of a fake. Reyhouse told about the past of Ari, who was taken to the temple. She ran away from her parents and is unlikely to plan to return home after the quarrel that occurred. If everything had been different, or if the girl had had a backup plan, she would not have agreed to the deal with the high priest. That is why the future king invites you to the palace, where you can live until the end of your days. The man is right, although not in everything. Ariel was bullied, and if she were real here, she really wouldn't have anywhere to go since the roads are blocked. Kyle is not one for mercy, so it's quite difficult to understand why he insists so much. He wants to use the woman in a game against his stepmother, the Empress. Such a strong and intelligent young man must understand that the former saint, on the contrary, will attract a lot of attention and will become his vulnerability, and not the strength that he is counting on. The blonde is about to refuse. The Empress is probably already against Ari, so there is no other choice. Kyle clarifies the answer one last time. The man sighs. He wanted to convince the beauty without resorting to forbidden methods and without revealing a secret that was about to become known. Since Rose is opposed to the saint, then as soon as she leaves the temple and is left without protection, she will immediately die without having time to blink an eye. No one will come to help. The Empress can use the beauty as leverage, regardless of where exactly she lives and how exactly she tries to hide from others. Elid's proposal is beneficial to both, because it will save both him and the heroine herself. No one would dare even lay a finger on a man who was brought to the palace by the crown prince himself. The girl understands that being in the palace will make life easier and will keep Ari a little safer, but it cannot be ruled out that Rose will decide to do harm in the absence of the prince. A little time will be allocated to think, but the most important thing is not to make a mistake, which will only become the worst thing that has happened. Before leaving, the man promises that he will come again the next day to get an accurate answer. He hopes for the favor that will be shown to him. The girl had just arrived home, but the gods had already started a fight. Not everyone agrees that breaking into the room was an ethical thing to do. Screams begin because fatigue and nerves are creeping out. If you think soberly, then Kyle is right to some extent. You need to give an answer, and most likely it will be positive, because there is no other way out anyway. Without a plan and means of defense, the maiden can be killed almost on the steps of the temple when she is about to go free. At this rate, a good and happy life will disappear. As a last resort, the lady has chest, with which she can attack with lightning, and also has Seal's blessing, which makes her invulnerable. The only thing you need to do is buy useful relics that you can use as needed. This will help in the future. The gods do not leave their charges alone without help. There is only one problem left, and it seems to be the worst. The heroine has no idea how to save herself from the sword of a madman, who offered his help after hearing a refusal that had already been prepared. After finishing all her business, the lady plans to return to the temple. She is not very comfortable being outside when it is too noisy, and there are a lot of strangers around. One of the reasons for her return is also the 3 guards who follow her literally everywhere. Reyhouse put them there, but there is no joy from this. The festival will end very soon, and the saint from Tiago will arrive, so it's worth checking how much Ariel has managed to accumulate so that she can finally try to make her plan a reality. There are 2,000 francs in the account, with which you can buy some kind of weapon for protection. The heroine praises herself for realizing in time and starting to save in order to escape from Kyle's sword. It is very important to become independent after leaving Ilium, because then no one will be able to influence the former saint. While the lady was making her plan, she had already changed it several times. Jumping to the side, the maiden blinks her eyes in surprise because a horse almost walked over her. The Empress's younger brother, Alberto Michael, rode in the carriage, right on the pedestrian part, where there were a lot of people. The saint is fine, but people have crowded forward, discussing something, groaning at the same time. The man saw that there was a child in front of the horse, but did not even slow down, running over the body. Only an important person can do this, since he is not afraid of anyone. The boy is most likely already dead. Nobody knows who his parents are, because the kid is from the Thieves' Guild and is an orphan. Ariel cannot listen to how Alberto himself laughed at him. The girl is no longer going to stay in place, so she suddenly rushes forward. She does not listen to the servants who tried to stop her, because she really hopes to make it in time. Squeezing through the crowd, the beauty pushes everyone else aside with her hands. She freezes with her mouth open as she observes the sight before her. Dwayne stands next to the saint to once again ask where the girl ran off so quickly. The Virgin orders the boy to be taken to the nearest hotel and some kind of stretcher made. The young man does not understand anything, so he tries to ask again, but this makes no sense. The lady breaks down and screams at him at the top of her lungs, saying that it was an order that should be obeyed. The brunette conveys all his emotions through shouting to the rest of his subordinates. They are obliged to make or bring a stretcher as quickly as possible before the baby's condition worsens on the road. The guy is still alive, but his breathing is intermittent. The eyes hardly react, but there is still a pulse, albeit weak. Death is already close, but the lady will be able to save the person because people are tenacious. Before her rebirth, the beauty was dying in terrible agony, so she still decided to save the boy. The hotel manager refuses the fee because if a child dies in the hotel, the reputation will suffer greatly. Removing the hood, the heroine illuminates her face, which everyone can now see. She is the saint of Ilium, and promises that the boy will be able to survive, because the girl herself will not allow him to die in pain that he did not deserve. In real life, the woman was born an illegitimate child, whom everyone hated. In a way, her and Ariel's lives are somewhat similar, because they both went through a lot. They constantly pointed fingers at the girl and also shouted hurtful words that really hurt to the core. Their characters are different because the heroine decided to take revenge on her offenders at any cost. The beauty took revenge on everyone who mocked, humiliated, and tried to insult. It was much worse for them, but even after everything was done, the maiden continued to poison their lives because she could not stop. The lady is sure that it is better to be an executioner than a victim who is humiliated. Only thanks to the rule of an eye for an eye was she able to survive in a cruel world set against her. In the new world, everything is different because the lady has gained the power bestowed by the gods. It allows you to select, but also to give life to all living things. After saving that bird, the lady no longer practiced healing magic, so she is no longer sure whether she will be able to heal a person who needs it so much. The Virgin is ready to pray to all the gods just to help the boy. He doesn't deserve the pain he's in, and she knows it. The heroine is ready to pray to all gods, if only everything ends well. The wounds began to slowly heal, which causes joy and a new wave of victory, but everything dissipates. You feel a sharp pain in the abdominal area, which makes you want to fall to the floor and curl into a ball. All this means is that when a lady heals, she takes away all the pain of that person. Saving people is a rather difficult task, and one should be proud that a lady has the strength to change something. Hands still reach out to the body, because everything that happens will not prevent the beauty from finishing what she started. She will see the matter through to the end, no matter what the cost, so she promises herself to do everything as best as possible. The baby jumps up sharply, trying to breathe in air. He looks around uneasily, not quite understanding what's going on. The blonde smiles a warm smile, greeting a new acquaintance. The girl became the one who saved a life, but she did not do it alone, because in the end, she was helped by the gods, who also tried to give her more power. The young man thanks, but instantly becomes sad. He has nothing to pay, even if he wanted to. Virgo calms him down, saying that she doesn't need anything from him at all. The kid looks like he's 7 or 8 years old and from the Thieves' Guild. This is partly true, because he is almost 10. If Michael decides to run him over on a horse again, the young man is obliged to step aside and not stand and hope for prudence on the part of the driver. The lady holds out a gold coin. This should be enough for new clothes that won't get bloody, as well as food that will help you recover quickly after being wounded. When someone is given something from the heart, one should say thank you, and that is what the boy says. He can't take money just like that, especially after everything that happened. The girl understands that nothing will work out for nothing, so she assures that nothing is given for nothing. From now on, the guy will help the saint in matters that can be found out through the guild. In the original story, one place was mentioned repeatedly. It is located on the continent, and there is a round-the-clock exchange of confidential information, and it is called the Thieves' Guild. In any case, the lady will be leaving Ilium very soon, so it would be nice to have an informant to help. This is how she can protect herself from most threats. Most likely, with the help of a child who sits with surprised eyes, the heroine will be able to gain access to the necessary information that will greatly help. That is why the girl proposed such an exchange, because she wonderfully understands that, like her, he too will benefit from cooperation with Ariel for the proposed fee. The heroine will need information from the Thieves' Guild from time to time. All you have to do is periodically sell it to the saint. She saved the baby, so she probably deserves a bit of trust. The boy nods his head, but also clarifies what kind of information the lady needs. She doesn't know if she can trust him right away, so she thinks about it for just a few seconds. To test the effectiveness, Ari asks to find out about one necklace. This is a very famous garnet jewelry that was the last gift from the Empress Dowager. The girl asks to know where it is, knowing full well that it is right in her room. 3 days later, at noon, they will meet at the third pillar on the east side of the Ilium Chapel. Since the baby is a member of a high-ranking guild, he can easily enter a place where the passage is usually closed. You don't even need to worry about this. Opening the window sashes, the blonde asks not to go out through the door. It will be harmless because they are on the ground floor, but at the same time, even a little easier than the other way. Behind the door are the knights from the temple, and their deal, which has just been concluded, must remain secret, and so that no one will ever know about it. This is the best option. Dwayne, standing outside the door, leans over to rest his ear against the tree. He tries to hear the conversation, but in the end, he doesn't understand anything. The girl opens the door sharply, freezing when she sees the guard. The young man asks for forgiveness, because he had no intention of scaring anyone. He asks what happened to the child, but then freezes when he sees the empty room. There's a bit of a mess there. Dwayne still can't calm down because he doesn't believe what's happening. He is trying to find out where exactly the boy's body went, because recently he was dying. He woke up and ran out the window. The young man continues to ask for details, but the blonde remains silent. She tries to find the right words to ask for something. They should discuss what happened over the past day. Even if the beauty asks you to keep your mouth shut, nothing will come of it anyway, because the hero will tell Reyhouse. They are all obliged to obey the chief priest. The saint turns around, saying that nothing else matters. There was a strong desire to return to the temple as soon as possible. Before leaving, the lady asks the servant to tidy up the hotel room so as not to disappoint anyone. Standing near the mirror, the heroine almost screams in horror. She lifts her shirt only to notice a crescent-shaped scar near her navel that was not visible the day before. Trying to build a chain of events, the beauty remembers that when she used her power, she felt a sharp pain in her stomach. She decided to examine the area where it hurt and discovered a surprise. The blonde tries to find excuses because she is not Sailor Moon, but nothing comes up. Perhaps this scar simply mixed up the titles, and this is the only hope. The girl knows that this mark is probably somehow connected with the power that the beauty used while treating the boy. We can only guess what exactly this means. Another message appears on the screen. Ariel proved her faith by demonstrating unprecedented resilience, thereby fully unleashing her power. A stigma appeared, and the interest and affection of the gods increased greatly. The god of mercy, Omen, attempts to enter the oracle. Stigma is a sign of holy power that appears only among saints, as proof that a person has been chosen by the gods themselves. This was known from the novel that the girl was reading. The heroine panics. She doesn't understand how this happened, because she is still a fake saint who shouldn't even have received something like this for such a trifle. Omen finally enters the oracle and looks around. Everyone else pretends not to notice the new member of the oracle, and thereby shows their disrespect. It seems that the gods are not very happy with the new arrival, which means that even among the gods, there are outcasts. Virgo tries to calm them down, saying that it is worth trying to get along with Omen. The man smiles, saying that he knew the girl to be a merciful and kind person. The first impression of this character is excellent, so the Virgin cannot say anything against it. Nobody wants to make friends with someone new, because everyone behaves like a hedgehog. The two go to bed to ignore Omen, but he just pats the others on the heads, saying they are tired. There is nothing to worry about because your friends will wake up soon. Virgo shakes her head because she has lost her understanding of what is going on with them, and therefore does not want to interfere. Ariel in the novel was definitely a fake, because Reyhouse chose her. Now the lady is worried about the manifestation of stigma, because the mark could not just appear on someone who pretends to be a benefactor. The high priest stands in front of the statue of the god of art Monty, begging him to hear his prayers, which have been offered for several hours. He tries his best, keeping his head down. He asks to receive direction on the right path, because the sinful body needs this most of all. Thoughts get confused, and some of them remain just as unclean. Dwayne interrupts the prayers because he enters the room. He kneels and begins his story. Over the past day, I managed to see something strange related to Ariel. In the square, one child was trampled by a horse that was rushing forward without stopping. The boy was already dying, but then the saint ordered the body to be taken to the hotel and locked herself in the room with him. The man thought that the beauty wanted to pray for her soul in order to make it easier to go to the gods in heaven, but when he opened the door, the young man's body simply evaporated, as if no one was there. The brunette is absolutely sure that the young man was on the verge of death, so he does not understand what happened at all. What was seen does not fit any options, no matter how you look at it. The back was broken, as were the limbs, so it was impossible to survive with such injuries. The knights were waiting outside the door, but the only way to pass by was to go out the window. Perhaps the young man really went out through the window. The first saint, who was considered the most powerful of all, took more than an hour to bring the dying man back to life. It remains a mystery how Ariel managed to cope so quickly, because it only took her 10 minutes, or even less. She doesn't say what exactly she did behind closed doors. Looking at Dwayne, the guy tries to hide his evil gaze, which is pierced by cold pieces of ice. He asks where the saint is, because he should see Ari as soon as possible. The girl was right about the items. There are still blocked goods, but as the oracle level increases, the beauty sees more skills and things. One of the latter is a glass of Monte for 250 francs, as well as a seal ring for 180. The whip of omen is the most expensive, because the price is 570 francs, and it helps to subdue your interlocutors. New products are full of strange things that defy explanation, but there are also some that cost as much as an airplane. You can only dream about pendants, because you will have to save for too long. The Hesed bracelet looks the most attractive. An irreplaceable thing for self-defense can definitely cost 340 francs. This will really come in handy when you have to leave the temple. At the festival, two guys accosted their friends, one of whom had a knife. If it weren't for Cass, everything could have ended sadly, but you shouldn't constantly rely on chance and other people. Kyle directly said that after leaving the palace, the lady would be hunted, so she agreed to buy the thing. There are still 1,600 francs left, which will help with the escape. The plan was not to spend money so soon, but the purchase turned out to be worth it, because the most important thing is safety. Omen begins to argue with the other gods, who, like the god of mercy, want their things to be acquired too. The price of the whip is reduced by 30 francs, even if the lady still does not buy it. There is a knock on the door, and then a second later, Reyhouse appears in the doorway, greeting the young lady. Not a single emotion wavered on his face as he spoke the words. The young man asks what the saint does. She just looks out the window, enjoying the view that opens. It's better not to tell the truth, so that no one thinks the beauty is crazy. It would be much better to enjoy the scenery outside, rather than looking out the window, because even the beauty of the girl herself is better enjoyed up close and not peeking from the corner. This is a kind of invitation. The hero invited Ariel for a walk in the garden, and she herself did not realize when she agreed, so she had to go down to the garden where the Lotunia flowers glow. This spectacle is impressive. During the day, the garden is incredibly beautiful, but at night, it also has its own atmosphere that cannot be taken away. The girl watches what is happening, noticing that the Lotunia glows like lanterns. The man chuckles and then asks if the friend knows the legend about the flowers they stopped near. She had never heard of anything like it. A long time ago, in one empire, there lived a fairy named Lotunia, and one day she met a young man who fell head over heels in love with her at first sight. Unfortunately, the feelings were not mutual. This is all because the beauty had already found the one she fell in love with, and was with him until the last. Then the hero turned to the demon for help, which was already a mistake. He asked to make the woman his, and the demon said that if such a strong desire appeared, he should kill the bird and wrap it in a vine. Then you need to soak the body with thorn juice and throw it at the side of the road. The man did everything exactly as he was told, and the next day he found Latunia flying there instead of a bird. Her wings were broken, and her body was soaked in blackthorn juice. The fairy lost the ability to fly and began to live with a guy. The always happy man stopped smiling. The hero turned to the demon again, asking how to restore joy. He replied that it was worth doing the same thing as with the bird, but with Latunia's wings. The next morning, the young man whom the fairy loved became entangled in a thorn bush and died. After this, the maiden smiled with all her heart for the last time, so brightly that she blinded him with her light. According to Reyhouse, this was the last thing the fairy did in her life. She wasn't going to be alone, so she did what was most important. She kissed her lover on his poison-soaked lips and died after him, thus making her choice, which was no longer possible to change. The blonde blinks her eyes in surprise. The hero killed the fairy's loved one, but she only smiled, which was already considered a rather strange reaction to such a thing. He dreamed so much of seeing a smile that once he saw it, he yearned for it for the rest of his life. The man struggled with the pain of loss, but nothing worked. Because of his love, he turned to dark forces. Melancholy turned out to be the worst punishment that existed. Even death for him was not as terrible as the loss of his beloved, who herself decided to die. Then the man from the legend took a rose that grew at the sight of Latunia's death and pricked himself on the thorns. They were saturated with the fairy's bitterness and resentment. The poison got into the blood and killed him for a painfully long time until the last. In the language of flowers, this name means all-consuming, destructive love. It's more like an obsession, and the girl is right, because a strong desire to possess something that does not belong to a person can really be called just that. Perhaps the hero simply did not know how to show his love in any other way, so he regretted it later. It is not the fault of the person who is obsessed with someone because they lost control of their actions. Reaching out his hand, the man runs his fingers through the saint's hair. He asks to say what would have happened if Reyhouse himself decided to break the wings of another person whom he wants to see next to him and not let him go anywhere. The gods and Ariel herself would probably hate the young man for such an act immediately. A discussion begins in the chat, and Omen immediately holds out a whip that can be used to make him your faithful slave. The hero says nothing more, but then abruptly changes his mind, so he starts talking about something else. He thought that Ariel was indeed a real saint who had received a blessing. The girl does not believe that someone reported to him, but she understands perfectly well that it was Dwayne. Eminence personally in front of him, how to make a lady fake, tested his strength, so he should not question anything. The man smiles as he asks Ariel about what he said earlier when he planted the white Latunia. The Virgin said that she would admire the light every day, because it warms the soul. It is believed that flowers can make wishes come true, and the heroine even wanted to make one of them so that it would definitely come true. Before the lady came into this body, the real Celestine said so. Because of a sad legend, roses are also called blessed because they have a special hidden ability. They are similar to lanterns, but at night, the light of the Latunia can only be seen by those who have divine power or are well developed. Elle asked to tell about what the beauty is hiding, but she already wants to cry. For some reason, everything happens to her. I had to specifically reread a bunch of books to avoid problems in the future, but she never got to the encyclopedia about plants. There is no way out because in the end, the lady fell into a trap. She is trying to say that she recently saw a dream in which a white Latunia, shining with white light, swayed, obeying a gust of wind. Ariel must have thought that the flowers sparkled in the moonlight as if in a dream, so she took everything for reality. This story was invented in haste, and the level of danger is higher than 2, because Reyhouse may not believe it. The man chuckles because it seems to him that the saint is lying. He turns away, saying that nothing is happening, just to hide his tracks. The girl has always wanted to become a real saint, so she doesn't understand whether there is any point in lying when, in any case, she is a fake, chosen by the priest himself. In the original story, Ari, on the contrary, would do anything to become a real saint. Virgo must take measures to convince. She suggests checking for abilities using the sphere. The young man noticed that the ward had changed quite a lot lately, and this could not help but frighten him. This is the first time this has happened to him, so nothing is clear. It is becoming more and more difficult for him to control himself, because every time he is being pressured. Tomorrow they will meet in the annex near the temple with the sphere to check. Returning back to the room, the lady finds a letter that was left on the table. This is from Kyle, who promises to come tomorrow, since he did not find the lady at home. Getting up from her seat, the blonde tries to calm down. She's pretty tired of the emotional swing that continues, so she wants to escape quickly. Deciding to get distracted, the lady turns her gaze to the screen, which displays a broadcast with the gods. They are silent for now, which is even a little surprising. The lady is not going to play games because time is really short. She is determined, so she is going to say everything that needs to be said at the moment. Smiling, the beauty asks if any of the gods would like to catch the sphere of sacred power tomorrow morning in the annex of the temple to which the saint will be taken. Of course, the woman knows that doing this is not very good, but she has no other choice. Anyone who performs a favor will be a benefactor for the rest of his life. The beauty does not even ask to break the sphere completely, because the only thing that is required is to disable it at least for some time in order to escape from the temple. The gods are unavailable because they are holding a meeting. For the first time, the heroine sees them ignoring the saint, while discussing something only among themselves. First 10 minutes passed, then half an hour, and then a whole hour, but nothing changed. For some reason, the meeting dragged on for quite some time, making the lady bored. No matter how much the gods favor Ari, she probably crossed a forbidden line when she asked to destroy the annex at a sacred place, so she will not be forgiven. Worrying will not help matters, and this is what the girl learned in advance. She's about to rest, so she heads to bed, deep in thought. If she doesn't get help, everything will be lost pretty soon. The heroine just wants to have a quiet life, so she tries her best to do everything right. Morning came, and with the rays of the sun came a maid who called the saint to awaken her. Stretching, the lady clears her eyes, while a friend says something about the temple extension, which had a disaster overnight. It is immediately clear who is to blame. Anna finds it difficult to contain her emotions because they are bursting out. The annex simply collapsed after someone used their powers on it to destroy it. As is known, there are 5 large zones within Ilium. The first is the main building, where believers gather for prayer and sacred ceremonies are held. Next are the rooms where the priests and priestesses are located, and where the saint and the rest of the priests live. This is the place that will be the hardest to get to. The holy place where the saint receives and gives blessings is another sector, as well as the library, where the incident with Hans and the new nun happened last time. The last place is perhaps one of the most important, because sacred relics are kept there, and holy and divine power borders there. This is a special building. Now there is almost nothing left of him. The beauty arrived at the scene just in time, but eventually noticed the result of what happened, which became ruins. From the very morning, the temple seemed to be turned upside down, but fortunately, no one was hurt. The relics did not remain unharmed, even if they suffered losses because of it. Reyhouse has been holding a meeting with the rest of the priests since the very morning to find out what happened. All the gods acted together, so they asked to become benefactors. The lady didn't even suspect that everything would turn out this way. They did a similar thing with the place where the gods serve, while the heroine asked for a minimum of movements. The special building was still unreliable, and no one liked it, especially the god of Art Monte. They behave like real villains. A familiar voice calls the saint, so she turns away from her screen, on which names are displayed one after another. This is the high priest who came closer. The temple looks as if it was struck by lightning at night, but everything is not so clear. Beauty hears how she and the other priests ended a meeting about what was happening. Everyone agreed that what happened did not look like a natural phenomenon. There wasn't a cloud in the sky, but the lightning actually struck right there. It was followed by a strong earthquake, which occurred only in the vicinity of the temple, and fragments of meteorites began to fall. The water pipeline burst, and everything was flooded with water, and besides, the steel fittings rusted in the blink of an eye. The ground opened up, and some divine relics were buried. It will take a lot of time just to dig everything up and restore it. An important meeting of the gods was held to assign roles for destruction. There are no suspects yet, but it looks like the machinations of one of the high magicians. The girl realizes that she missed the fact that magic also exists in the world. There was no main male character among the magicians, and so she forgot how everything happened. The 3-story building was destroyed overnight, and secretly, and in such different ways that everyone began to worry. Magi class is not lower than 9th. There are no 9th grade magicians in the Empire, and in general, there are many questions about what happened. El himself does not fully understand the scheme and motive for such a crime. The young man plans to entrust the case to Baron Bester. This is Diego, about whom even Ariel herself seems to know, who usually sits within four walls without knowing what is happening. The priests are obliged to know what happened and about the person who dared to covet the temple. The heroine doesn't listen because she doesn't understand how she could forget about an important character. Diego Bester is the greatest magician in the empire. This man received the title of Baron for his abilities, and he is also that unpleasant dark horse in the novel. This is because the man's true identity is one of the demonic dukes who control the demon world, which has long been known about. In the novel, Ariel goes crazy with envy of Camilla, who has become a real saint, so she enters into a contract with Diego Bester, giving up her soul. Following the contract, she causes terrible harm to the saint, but the girl is protected by divine power. According to the original story, the three main male characters save the beauty. In other words, the man is in first place among the characters with whom the virgin should not date, so as not to repeat the fate from the novel. She doesn't agree with Elle's decision. Celestine's biggest concern is the prestige of the temple. If the matter is entrusted to the magicians, they will simply laugh at the priests in the church after they finally help. The saint is right, but magicians are the only ones who can notice traces of magic. This is the most effective way to identify the criminal who did everything. After using spells, traces remain on a subtle level, and although magicians are called infidels, it will still be difficult for them to turn away from the temple with God. The problem is that there is no need to look for anyone, since no magical traces will remain in any case, since the tricks of the gods are so pure that they are invisible. If Reyhouse, after capturing the enemy, releases information, then all residents will learn that a special temple building was destroyed by magicians. The reputation can suffer greatly, because people will think that the security is so bad that some magician came and single-handedly destroyed the building. The girl is worried whether everything that is happening will have a bad influence on the faith of the townspeople. It's better to leave everything as it is to support something that could easily collapse. Elle again notices that the beauty has changed a lot. She brushes it off, saying that she is worried about the prestige of the temple because those people are outsiders. The lady's words definitely make sense, so it remains to investigate the matter with the help of the knights without unnecessary noise. Still, they listen to the saint's opinion. The girl curtsies and prepares to leave. She saw so many shocking things that she was very tired. The morning turned out to be strange. Bowing her head in response, Elle sets the beauty down to rest. They will see each other again later, and these words have a double meaning that is not immediately clear. Making her way back to her room, the lady sighs. She urgently needs to escape, but there is still only 1,600 francs left in her account, which is definitely not enough. Things don't go as planned. 3 main male characters and a sudden power and a mysterious saint fell from above without warning. Anna knocks on the door before entering. She did not want to distract the saint from important activities, but, as it turned out, a new message came from the palace. If this is from the imperial castle, then most likely it is Kyle writing. Accepting the envelope, the beauty slowly unfolds it, realizing that she was not mistaken. The man says that due to circumstances, he will not be able to leave the castle for some time, but then he will return again. The lady had never been happy with a piece of paper. The escape can be contemplated in complete calm for several days. The maid also reminds him that she found out about something important. For some reason, 10 days ago, a carriage from the temple, sent by the priest himself, went to Tiago. The girl jumps up in surprise. Envoys have already been sent to that city. If you take into account the time spent there, everything will take about 2 weeks, but no more. Everything will be fine, but even the nun herself does not understand what is happening. After all, first a special building collapsed, and then people began to scurry back and forth incessantly. Talk about a new saint, which only high-ranking people know about, including Reyhouse. It was 10 days when the man decided to test the girl's strength. The heroine remembers how it all happened and shudders again. She doesn't understand what exactly this is supposed to mean for her and her plan. A week before telling about the girl from Tiago, Elle had already decided to bring her to test her strength too. The feelings are more than unpleasant. As soon as the lady arrives, thanks to a simple measurement of the holy power, everything will become clear. But then the motives of the young man who decided to find out about the power are unclear. There is no time left to think. The plan needs to be quickly adjusted, while there is still at least some clue left, because it will only get worse. The heroine arrived at the meeting place. This is the eastern part of the ceremony hall, 3rd column, where they meet the boy from the Thieves' Guild. Since everything has already been accomplished with Tiago, we can no longer mark time. Anna volunteered as one who wanted to go with her mistress. The beauty noticed long ago that the girl's soul does not belong to the temple, so she asks to go together. The brunette put a lot of effort into becoming a junior priestess. Nothing matters anymore, not even everything that happened before. Since the girl came to Ilium, she has always lived in doubt, but it was the saint who extended a helping hand. Anna assures that there is no turning back. If she is left alone, she will still follow the girl, even to the ends of the earth, because it is important to her. The blonde smiled because she did not expect such devotion. She is not able to feel despair after this, because she will always be helped to see the light. If the brunette follows the mistress, she will be able to help with the work. As before, the saint plans to open a store that will require several workers. After the destruction of the special temple building, security increased. The priests aren't going to leave things to chance anymore, but Ariel isn't sure if that boy can get through. Right while she is thinking, the lady is distracted by steps, and then by a familiar voice. The young man thought that the lady was worried whether he would be able to get to the appointed place. The guy turned out to be dexterous and smart because he still came. The Thieves' Guild has the best knowledge in the Empire. Now it's time to post information about the garnet necklace that he promised to find out about. It was in the hands of Count Rosento, and there the whole journey began. The father of the current count, Hagen Rosento, several years ago bought a necklace that had been stolen in order to later sell it at a profit. Now the thing was sold to some woman at auction, so it no longer exists. The lady is believed to be a member of the nobility, but she does not appear in high society, so the guild has no information. What has been said is enough to start trusting the boy. This time there is enough information, so the heroine gives the baby her bright smile. In return, Ariel would like the young man to find out something else important. She doesn't know what exactly she needs, but she's ready to try to formulate her thoughts. Handing over a bag of coins, the beauty says that this is the payment for the next task, 50 francs. The hero even opens his mouth from the surprise that captures him. This will be an important matter, so in order to obtain information from higher levels, some things may be needed. This time, I want to know about the girl from Ares. There is another knock on the door, and the heroine was already calling Anna, but it's Reyhouse. He seemed to remember the way to the room best, so he came again. From the threshold, the blonde says that he came to find out about the opinion of a friend. In 2 weeks, a carriage with a beauty from Tiago will arrive. The palace ordered the saint to be sent to them as soon as possible. This is the second request that must be fulfilled unconditionally. What exactly they need is not immediately stated. As it turned out, the empress became pregnant and wants to receive a blessing. She is afraid for her child, so she expects the blonde in her chambers very soon. If Rose is pregnant, then things aren't looking good for Kyle. It becomes clear what exactly the man was talking about in the letter, and this even makes you a little sad. The girl doesn't really want to go to the palace, but will consider this the last mission for the fake saint. If she is ordered to go there, of course she will obey. Reyhouse hesitates in place, only to later say that he does not want the girl to go anywhere. There is still no choice, because if he doesn't agree, it will be quite strange to argue. The man knows that the crown prince has already come to the palace several times, even if he tried to be as secretive as possible from the others. Leaning closer, the young man rests his face on his friend's shoulder, sighing. He cannot believe that the beauty still sympathizes with the crown prince. The heroine smells a strange smell. It becomes obvious that Reyhouse has been drinking, because everything goes completely wrong as planned. He found solace in alcohol, knowing it was not good. The hero thought that he had completely devoted his entire body to serving God, but it seems that this is not so. The chaos in your head does not allow you to calm down, so sometimes the solutions are not so good. God Monty happily gives up Elle's body to the saint, who begins to get angry. She doesn't need such concessions, because she doesn't even like the one who stands in front of her. The young man sharply admits that he was preparing a cozy place in the dungeons of a special building, but the earthquake destroyed everything. If not for the gods, the maiden would indeed have died in prison. Now the guy has no idea how to protect the girl from the treacherous crown prince, even if he himself is the same. The saint assures that she can defend herself on her own, asking her to go and rest. If Ariel herself is so confident, then the hero will happily go back to his chambers. His smile glows as if his ears have heard good news. The expression on her face made the beauty blush. She doesn't understand what was just said, but she tries her best to calm down so as not to get caught. Rose sighs. She had to tell her about the threat of miscarriage so that the saint would be sent a little earlier. The girl will be there within a week. which is not such a long time. The Empress sits back, wondering what exactly she should do next. Ariel is a fake, but still quite brave for someone like that. The man assures that the boredom will not last long. The sister turns her gaze, which remains the same skeptical, because what is happening is not completely entertaining. The girl's brother, Alberto Michael, smiles back, saying that it's worth waiting a little longer to see something exciting. It's not worth asking for too much. The blonde could not think that the one who was called the libertine of the family could play such an important role in her sister's life. He pleased me with his actions. As soon as everything is over, the young man expects praise. The saint and the high priest probably think that it will be enough to kill the maid who knows the secret in order to avoid shame. They did not know that Annie was crazy about Michael, who of course did not miss his chance and took advantage of what came to his hand. If the girl's divine power was gone because a new saint appeared, there would be nothing they could do. But things are completely different. The fact remains that the girl is a fake from the very beginning, so there can be no question of the blessing of the gods. It will be easy to fool around. If something goes wrong, then Rose can blame the miscarriage on Ariel and Kyle, who will not try to save themselves because they will lose. Alberto wants revenge more than anything, even if his sister asks him not to say such things to a woman who is pregnant. Last time it was the carriage that ruined everything. The Empress abruptly throws away the maid who is giving her a massage. She begins to sob and beg for mercy because she won't tell anyone. Rose is just tired. Alberto will deal with everything on his own. The saint still does not know about the trap that will await her, so they head to the temple as if nothing had happened. Entering the palace grounds, the maiden gasps at the beauty. Flowers planted lengthwise only emphasize the beauty and power of the structure, which is the most important in the empire. The temple has enormous influence in the empire, but it certainly cannot compare with the palace in terms of luxury. There's no point in even trying to compete. Shaking her head, the lady tries to shake off the obsession. There is no time to try to consider beauty, because the mission is completely different. The girl saved up only 3,500 francs. Gradually, the ruins of the temple are being put in order, so that in the near future the relics buried in the ground will also be found. Before Reyhouse calls the lady to test her strength, she needs to buy that very sacred thing that is so important. You only need to visit Lloyd's Guild once. If you think positively, life becomes even easier. If you hold out just a little, then the test for sainthood will pass without problems in order to move on. As soon as everything is over, the lady will be able to say goodbye to those who stand in the way of a happy life. She plans to quickly give the Empress her blessing and return back. The Emperor meets the heroine near the chambers. It's hard to believe, but they say they have discovered a new girl with new holy powers. There are rarely two saints in one generation, but this time there was some exception that caused another person to appear who came from Tiago. Rose, sitting in bed, smiles her nasty smile, with which she tries to poison the surrounding atmosphere. She believes that there is nothing strange about two saints, because it is impossible. The beauty urgently needed a blessing, so she even had to intercept the carriage from Tiago. She hopes that the temple will generously forgive the behavior of the pregnant woman. Once again, things didn't go according to plan. After Kyle's words, the lady guessed that she would have problems, but she didn't think it was that bad. The surprise prevented her. Michael gathered two saints in one place in order, on the one hand, to bless the future heir, and on the other, also in order to find out what kind of shamelessness and dishonor was happening. Exactly what should have happened happened. The woman leans back on the pillows, talking about her dizziness just from everything that is happening. Rose planned everything to make things worse for everyone, without caring about everyone else. Kyle, standing in the corner, was, as expected, in a lousy mood. It is much more important to find out who this girl from Tiago is, who is standing right a meter away from the saint, and not what is happening between Rosa and Elida, who are not on very good terms. Alberto knocks, and then immediately bows his head. My sister is not feeling very well due to her pregnancy, so he intends to speak on her behalf. This is the same man who drove over the boy. A family of real villains spring into action, apparently planning to thwart Ariel. Pointing his finger at the beauty, the young man declares that she is deceiving the entire imperial palace, posing as someone who she really is not. The man asks Michael to shut up, but Her Highness says that this is the truth, and not just a lie. She was shocked when she found out the whole truth. Perhaps the saint can be reminded of a maid named Annie. She used to be a personal servant, and then disappeared somewhere. After everything that happened, the beauty decided to tell the whole truth and confess to all Alberto's sins. She was worried that if everything was found out, it could cause a commotion in the empire. In Tiago, a true saint appeared at the right time, who this time is the one who will not lie, only in his words. She is more righteous. The blonde frowns. Once again, everything went wrong, but this time it was much worse. She could not imagine that the maid was acting in concert with the Empress and her brother. The castle dug deeper, and it turned out that Ariel paid a little more every month for Annie to keep her silence. As proof, the young man somehow got hold of a letter with a confession from a maid who disappeared immediately after sending the message. In addition to all this, the lady sent a letter of proposal to the crown prince. Now it became clear that the brat who ruined Celestine's life was involved in everything. When the emperor asks his son what they are talking about, he turns away, saying that he knows nothing. That's all that can be said in a situation like this. When Alberto heard from the maid that Elita was involved in the case, he also did not believe it at first, but since they had a secret relationship, then it became clear that they exchanged secret engagement letters. There is no point in continuing further. The Empress covers her mouth with her hand, feigning a gasp. The acting remains at the highest level, because the girl herself wants it that way. The crown prince stands up, removing the hilt of his sword with all his might. Sir Michael must be careful with such statements, so as not to say goodbye to his life. Addressing the emperor, the man tries to express his fear, because Elita has taken it upon herself to threaten everyone else. This makes it a little scary. After what happened, all that remains is to ask the saint's opinion. There is no point in saying anything, because everything hidden has become known to the majority in the room. Judging by what Alberto said, he, based on the inventions of some maid, decided to call the beauty a fake, thereby greatly hurting her feelings. A real saint has appeared, but the lady still continues to pretend. The heroine wants proof of who this person is and that he really is not a fake. In such a short time, the palace was able to carry out a procedure to confirm the sacred power, which in fact was determined only at first glance. Mrs. Tina healed a deer with a broken leg and performed a miracle by giving sight to a blind man. This was seen by many residents of Tiago. Ariel herself, saying that her body was very weak, constantly holed up in her room, not intending to go outside and showing herself as a person who has a connection with the gods. Since His Majesty doesn't say anything, then it would be best to call the palace doctors, who will certainly help figure everything out better than others and provide a service. The king agrees to perform the ritual, but Alberto continues to nod. He does not believe that the saint did not use dirty methods to arrange everything in advance. The imperial palace is not so weak that a person from outside will easily deceive everyone around him. The girl just asked to call the doctors. The lady did not offer any specific method, but they have already tried to attack her for what she is doing. The knight continues to resist without any reason. It seems that the son took after his father, who also had problems with aggression. The hero wants to know what Ariel is going to do next. The situation worries the crown prince, but the best he can do is remain silent and watch the situation from the sidelines as a spectator. The gods begin to criticize Michael and also say that this will not end well. Very soon, the situation will completely turn around, and now the lady herself will be on the winning side. The healers have arrived. The next thing the saint asks is to close the curtains so that the room becomes completely dark, and then you can even work in peace. The girl has prepared only a few important things, and therefore asks the others to bring the required flour. With his help, everything will become clear very soon. The guards brought in a white latunia, which glows wonderfully, like a night lantern that attracts attention. The girl can see the light emanating. The white latunia is the rose, whose light is visible to those who have sacred or divine power. The saint who arrived from Tiago must also see the same light that spreads throughout the room. She has power, so she shouldn't be surprised. Everything was clear at first glance. Camille from the original novel is the girl from Aries with the perfect hair, and if nothing matches, there can only be one answer. This maiden is exactly the same as Ariel herself, which means that she is a fake who is absolutely nothing. Holding out a rose, the heroine asks the healers to make an extract from this flower for tea, which both contenders for a real virgin, blessed by the gods, will then drink. The heroine also asks to bring an extract from the flower of white death. Such an impulse greatly surprises the people gathered in the room. The flower of death is beautiful and snow-white, like Lotunia, so it is very difficult to distinguish them with an unprofessional eye. However, one of them contains a deadly poison that can kill a person in a few seconds. A true saint can easily discern which hour is brewed from Latunia and which is not. It is in this way that one can understand what is true. The beauty is not going to test the strength only through the definition of Latunia T, because this will not be enough. A fake must have the courage to die if he makes a mistake. If it becomes known that Ariel is not a true saint, then the position of the prince and the high priest will be shaken. All forces must be devoted to defense. If the empress brings someone from outside, there will be no point in trying to suspect her. In this case, the game becomes more tough. Surely the lady is trying to overthrow Alita, who is the heir. Her plan is quite simple, so it was easy to expose it. Tina can actually see the light of Latunia. She doesn't have sacred power, but she has divine power that will help. Even so, she would have handled the role of a fake saint better than Ari, who is a dummy. The procedure for confirming sacred power is not a difficult matter, which can only be solved by forging documents. This would be a way to portray a real character. Nothing will work out, because what stands in front of them is not the real Ariel, who came from a completely different world. Despite the pregnancy, Her Highness is trying to figure out the fake girl with strength, so the heroine even wants to show the truth so that she will calm down. If this somehow harms a woman's pregnancy, then nothing can be done. She knows what she's signing up for because she gets to choose. Nodding her head, the lady asks His Majesty to do just that. There can be nothing worse for pregnancy than government problems that will not subside until the truth is known. The healers prepared a cup of tea from each plant. Everyone left so as not to give any clues. One mask was put on each person's face, and the placement of the cups would be chosen by Sir Michael. By looking, you can determine which cup contains the desired drink. Latunia looks exactly the same, but seems to be glowing the same way as before. Smiling, the beauty invites Mistress Tina to choose first, since she has only recently arrived from Tiago. The right to choose remains with her, but fear is visible in her eyes. Something is definitely wrong. Some time ago, the lady definitely saw the light, but now both cups are the same. The room was completely plunged into a viscous darkness that oppresses. Trying to stop trembling, the heroine shouts something about it being a conspiracy. There is no Latunia in both cups because the light has completely disappeared. Perhaps Ariel had a hand in this. Without listening to the screams, Celestine assures that with her own eyes she sees a wonderful light that illuminates the room. Tina falls into a stupor, trying to comprehend what is happening. It seems that someone was trying to deceive everyone in the Empire by passing off divine power as sacred. It is impossible not to distinguish them because it has never been so simple before. Taking a sip from one mug, the girl puts it back on the table. Still, you shouldn't brew flowers into tea because the taste is a little bitter. Obviously, none of those present know anything about Latunia. If you separate a rose from its stem and root, it ceases to give off its wonderful radiance. Tina continues the hysteria, which is gaining more and more momentum over and over again. She doesn't see any light, so she screams about the same thing. Turning sharply to the Knight Michael, the girl says that they agreed on something completely different. She didn't sign up for shame. Alberto promised wealth and honor for Ilium, but ultimately delivered none of the above. While forcing the lady to drink from a cup, the young man shouts about how she dared to deceive everyone. The beauty is finally thrown aside because the crown prince rushes at the knight. He noticed that the cup contained poison, which the man had specially selected. The guards, by order of the emperor, pick up the false saint, who is going to be taken away as soon as possible. I'm pretty tired of this mess. Alberto sincerely apologizes. He could not imagine that the saint who was brought to the temple would turn out to be a fake. Staring at the hero with an icy gaze full of malice, the man asks what they did to him. The guy blamed the temple followers for his crazy act. Forcing the empress's brother to kneel and beg for forgiveness, Alita steps aside to give him way. Ariel looks down at him. This person talks and behaves disgustingly with people, and given his actions, he does not deserve forgiveness. Alberto believes that human life is just some kind of toy. Leaning down, the lady touches the young man on the cheek, and he immediately turns around. It feels like he was hit, but he wasn't. This is called a magical sign that the beauty received.